The Great Crusade's relentless expansion across the galaxy during the 30th millennium brought the Emperor's forces to the far-flung reaches of the Eastern Fringe, where ancient star charts marked the boundary between known space and the vast unexplored regions beyond. Among these distant territories lay the Damocles Gulf, a sprawling region of space that would eventually become one of the most strategically significant areas in the eastern sectors of the Imperium. The initial Imperial expeditions into the Damocles Gulf region were spearheaded by the 13th Expeditionary Fleet, supported by elements of various Space Marine legions, whose primary mission focused on rapid territorial acquisition rather than detailed planetary surveys. These early reconnaissance forces encountered a patchwork of human worlds that had survived the Age of Strife through various means. Some had maintained basic technological capabilities, others had regressed to feudal societies, and a few had developed unique cultural adaptations to their isolated circumstances. The strategic value of the Damocles Gulf became apparent to Imperial strategists almost immediately upon the region's discovery. The Gulf's position created a natural corridor between the established Imperial territories of the Eastern Fringe and the uncharted expanses that stretched toward the galactic rim. This geographical advantage meant that any force controlling the Gulf could effectively monitor and regulate access to vast unexplored regions, while simultaneously protecting the established Imperial worlds from potential threats emerging from the galactic edge. Imperial Navy cartographers identified several key stellar phenomena that enhanced the region's strategic importance. The presence of stable warp currents flowing through the Gulf created relatively predictable travel routes for Imperial fleets, while the density of habitable worlds provided numerous potential staging points for further expansion efforts. The region's stellar geography also offered natural defensive positions, with several nebulae and asteroid fields that could serve as obstacles to hostile forces or concealment for Imperial assets. The colonization efforts that followed the initial military conquest reflected the Imperium's systematic approach to territorial integration. Imperial administrators arrived aboard massive colony ships, accompanied by Adeptus Mechanicus survey teams whose responsibility involved cataloging each world's resources and technological potential. These early assessments would prove crucial in determining which planets received priority for development and which would serve specific roles within the emerging regional infrastructure. Pavanus emerged as one of the most significant Imperial acquisitions during this period. The world's existing industrial base, though primitive by Imperial standards, demonstrated sufficient potential for expansion. The planet's population had maintained basic manufacturing capabilities throughout the Age of Strife, producing simple mechanical devices and maintaining a rudimentary understanding of metallurgy. Imperial engineers recognized that Pavanus could be transformed into a major industrial center with appropriate investment and technological uplift. The transformation of Pavanus began with the construction of massive manufactorum complexes designed according to standard Imperial templates. These facilities incorporated advanced production techniques that dramatically increased the world's manufacturing capacity while introducing the local population to Imperial industrial practices. The planet's natural mineral deposits, particularly iron ore and rare earth elements, provided the raw materials necessary for sustained industrial growth. Cordelia presented different opportunities for Imperial development. The world's agricultural potential impressed the initial survey teams, who noted the planet's favorable climate and fertile soil conditions. Imperial agronomists implemented large-scale farming operations that utilized advanced cultivation techniques to maximize crop yields. The establishment of Cordelia as a major agricultural center required significant infrastructure development, including the construction of processing facilities, storage complexes, and transportation networks capable of handling massive food shipments. The development of Cordelia's agricultural capacity involved more than simple farming expansion. Imperial engineers constructed vast irrigation systems that channeled water from the planet's polar regions to previously arid areas, effectively doubling the amount of arable land. Genetic modification programs enhanced local crop varieties to improve their nutritional content and resistance to environmental stresses. These improvements transformed Cordelia from a self-sufficient agricultural world into a major food producer capable of supporting multiple star systems. Additional agri-worlds throughout the Damocles Gulf region underwent similar development processes, each tailored to local conditions and imperial requirements. Some worlds specialized in grain production, utilizing vast mechanized farms that stretched across entire continents. Others focused on livestock breeding, developing herds of cattle and other protein sources that could feed imperial populations across the eastern fringe. The coordination of these agricultural efforts required sophisticated logistical planning to ensure consistent food supplies reached their intended destinations. The establishment of reliable supply lines between these newly developed worlds represented one of the Great Crusade's most significant logistical achievements in the Eastern Fringe. Imperial Navy vessels regularly traversed established routes between agricultural centers and industrial worlds, carrying raw materials in one direction and finished goods in the other. These supply networks created economic interdependence that strengthened imperial control over the region while providing the foundation for sustained growth. Imperial military planners recognized that the Damocles Gulf's strategic value required appropriate defensive measures. The construction of orbital defense platforms around key worlds provided protection against potential threats, while demonstrating imperial commitment to the region's long-term security. These installations incorporated advanced sensor arrays capable of detecting approaching vessels at extreme ranges, giving Imperial forces adequate warning of potential hostile activity. The integration of local populations into Imperial society proceeded according to established protocols developed during earlier phases of the Great Crusade. Imperial administrators worked to identify existing power structures that could be adapted to serve imperial interests while eliminating those that posed potential threats to imperial authority. This process often involved lengthy negotiations with local leaders who possessed sufficient influence to facilitate smooth transitions to imperial rule. Educational programs introduced imperial citizens throughout the Damocles Gulf to basic imperial doctrine and technological concepts. These initiatives served multiple purposes. They created a more productive workforce capable of operating imperial equipment, established cultural connections between local populations and the broader Imperium, and identified individuals with potential for advancement within imperial hierarchies. The success of these programs varied significantly between different worlds, depending on local cultural factors and the effectiveness of imperial administrators. The Horus Heresy's outbreak during the early 31st millennium fundamentally altered the strategic situation throughout the Eastern Fringe, including the Damocles Gulf region. The massive civil war that engulfed the Imperium diverted military resources away from frontier regions, as Space Marine legions and Imperial Army units were recalled to participate in the conflict closer to Terra. This redeployment left many Eastern Fringe worlds with significantly reduced defensive capabilities at a time when their strategic importance was becoming increasingly apparent. Communication disruptions caused by the heresy created additional challenges for Imperial forces in the Damocles Gulf. The warp storms that accompanied the conflict interfered with astropathic communications, making coordination between different worlds extremely difficult. Local Imperial commanders found themselves operating with limited information about broader strategic developments, forcing them to make crucial decisions based on incomplete intelligence about the heresy's progress. The withdrawal of Space Marine forces from the Eastern Fringe had particularly significant consequences for the Damocles Gulf security. The legions that had originally conquered the region possessed the combat capabilities necessary to respond effectively to major threats, but their absence left local defense forces dependent on Imperial Army units and planetary defense forces that lacked equivalent firepower and mobility. This reduction in military capability occurred precisely when the region's growing economic importance made it an increasingly attractive target for potential enemies. Despite these challenges, the worlds of the Damocles Gulf demonstrated remarkable resilience during the heresy period. The industrial and agricultural infrastructure established during the Great Crusade continued operating with minimal disruption, providing essential supplies to imperial forces engaged in the broader conflict. Local administrators adapted to reduced imperial oversight by developing more autonomous decision-making processes while maintaining their fundamental loyalty to the emperor's vision. The aftermath of the Horus Heresy ushered in a period of relative isolation for the Damocles Gulf region that would persist for several millennia. The massive reconstruction efforts required throughout the Imperium meant that frontier regions like the Eastern Fringe received limited attention from Terra's central authorities. This isolation forced local imperial forces to develop greater self-reliance while maintaining their defensive responsibilities with reduced external support. During this extended period of limited contact with the Imperium's core territories, the worlds of the Damocles Gulf evolved distinct characteristics that reflected their unique circumstances. Industrial worlds like Pavinus developed specialized manufacturing techniques adapted to local resource availability and reduced access to advanced imperial technology. Agricultural worlds refined their production methods to maximize efficiency while maintaining the quality standards necessary to support regional populations. The gradual development of regional trade networks compensated partially for the reduced connection to broader imperial commerce. These local economic relationships created prosperity that sustained the region's population while generating the resources necessary for continued defensive preparations. The success of these regional networks demonstrated the fundamental soundness of the imperial colonization strategy, even under adverse circumstances. The emergence of the Tau Empire during the 35th millennium marked the beginning of a new chapter in the Eastern Fringe's turbulent history, though imperial forces would not immediately recognize the significance of this development. The species that would eventually challenge imperial dominance across multiple sectors began their expansion from their homeworld of Tau, located in a region of space that imperial cartographers had previously dismissed as containing only primitive civilizations unworthy of immediate attention. The Tau's rapid technological advancement during their period of isolation represented an unprecedented phenomenon in the galaxy's recorded history. While most species required millennia to develop interstellar travel capabilities, the Tau achieved this milestone through a combination of natural ingenuity and what their records describe as guidance from the ethereal caste. Their early expansion efforts focused on nearby star systems within their local stellar cluster, establishing colonies that would eventually form the foundation of their sept-based civilization. The first sphere expansion began approximately 3,000 years after the Tau's initial unification under ethereal leadership. This coordinated expansion effort differed fundamentally from typical imperial conquest patterns, emphasizing negotiation and technological integration rather than pure military subjugation. Tau expansion fleets carried advanced terraforming equipment alongside their military forces, enabling them to establish self-sufficient colonies on worlds that other species might consider marginally habitable. Tau colonization techniques incorporated sophisticated environmental modification systems that could transform planetary atmospheres and surface conditions within decades rather than centuries. These capabilities allowed them to establish viable settlements on worlds throughout their expansion zone, creating a network of interconnected sept worlds that shared resources and technological innovations. The efficiency of this expansion process enabled the Tau to claim territory at a rate that would have required massive Imperial fleet deployments to match. The establishment of major sept worlds during this period created the foundation for sustained Tau expansion toward Imperial territory. Viorla emerged as a crucial military production center, specializing in the manufacture of advanced battlesuits and weapon systems that would later prove highly effective against Imperial forces. The sept's industrial capacity focused on precision engineering and advanced materials science, producing equipment that incorporated technological principles unfamiliar to Imperial observers. Daleth developed into the Tau Empire's primary commercial hub, coordinating trade relationships between different Sept worlds while managing diplomatic contacts with alien species encountered during expansion efforts. The Sept's location at the intersection of several major trade routes made it an ideal center for economic coordination, while its advanced communication systems enabled real-time coordination between distant Tau colonies. Borkin established itself as the Tau Empire's foremost center for scientific research and technological development. The Sept's research facilities focused on advancing Tau understanding of physics, engineering, and xenobiology, producing innovations that enhanced their military capabilities while improving their colonization techniques. The concentration of scientific expertise on Borkin created a knowledge base that accelerated Tau technological development across all sectors. The Tau's approach to incorporating alien species into their expanding empire represented a significant departure from Imperial doctrine regarding xenos contact. Rather than exterminating encountered alien civilizations, Tau expansion forces offered membership in what they termed the greater good, a philosophical framework that promised mutual benefit through cooperation. This strategy proved remarkably effective in securing the allegiance of species that might otherwise have resisted Tau expansion. The Kroot represented the most significant early addition to Tau military capabilities. These avian warriors possessed natural combat abilities that complemented Tau technological advantages, while their unique evolutionary adaptations made them valuable scouts and infiltrators. The integration of Kroot forces into Tau military doctrine created combined arms capabilities that Imperial forces had not previously encountered, leading to tactical confusion during early engagements. Vespid auxiliaries provided the Tau with specialized capabilities for operations in challenging environmental conditions. Their natural flight abilities and resistance to extreme temperatures made them ideal for reconnaissance missions and operations on hostile worlds. The incorporation of Vespid units into Tau forces demonstrated their willingness to adapt their military doctrine to incorporate the unique strengths of allied species. The gradual expansion of Tau territory toward Imperial space occurred over several centuries, with individual Sept worlds establishing outposts and research stations that slowly pushed the boundaries of Tau-controlled space closer to established Imperial territories. This expansion proceeded carefully, with Tau forces conducting extensive reconnaissance before establishing permanent settlements. Their cautious approach reflected both tactical prudence and their desire to avoid premature confrontation with the Imperium. Imperial detection of Tau expansion activities initially occurred through routine patrol missions conducted by Imperial Navy vessels operating along the eastern fringe's outer boundaries. These early encounters typically involved Imperial ships investigating unusual sensor readings or responding to distress signals from merchant vessels that had encountered Tau forces. The sporadic nature of these contacts meant that Imperial commanders initially dismissed them as isolated incidents rather than evidence of systematic expansion by an organized alien empire. The first documented Imperial Tau engagement occurred when an Imperial Navy patrol squadron encountered a Tau exploration fleet near the outer edge of the Damocles Gulf region. The Imperial vessels, expecting to find pirates or raiders, instead confronted advanced alien warships equipped with weapons technology that Imperial sensors could not immediately classify. The Tau vessels demonstrated maneuverability and firepower that exceeded Imperial expectations for alien craft, while their coordinated tactics suggested military doctrine comparable to Imperial standards. Imperial commanders who participated in these early encounters filed reports describing alien vessels that utilized energy weapons of unknown design and demonstrated unusual tactical flexibility. The Tau ships appeared capable of rapid course changes that should have been impossible given their apparent mass, while their weapons produced energy signatures that Imperial technical specialists could not match to any known technology. These reports created confusion within Imperial command structures, as the described capabilities seemed inconsistent with typical xenos' technological limitations. The appearance of Tau ground forces during planetary engagements further complicated Imperial understanding of their new adversaries. Imperial Guard units expecting to face typical alien raiders instead encountered disciplined formations, equipped with advanced battlesuits and supported by alien auxiliaries whose capabilities defied easy categorization. The combination of Tau technology and alien auxiliary forces created tactical challenges that Imperial commanders had not previously encountered. Tau fire warriors demonstrated marksmanship and tactical coordination that impressed even veteran Imperial officers accustomed to facing competent enemies. Their pulse rifles produced casualties at ranges that exceeded most Imperial small arms, while their ability to coordinate fire support with battlesuit units created overlapping fields of fire that proved difficult for Imperial forces to penetrate. The disciplined nature of Tau infantry formations contrasted sharply with the chaotic combat styles typically associated with Xenos forces. The deployment of crisis battlesuits in combat revealed Tau technological capabilities that Imperial forces struggled to counter effectively. These advanced combat systems combine the mobility of jump infantry with the firepower of light vehicles, enabling Tau forces to engage Imperial units from unexpected angles while maintaining the flexibility to withdraw before effective countermeasures could be implemented. The battlesuit's sophisticated targeting systems and diverse weapon loadouts made them adaptable to various tactical situations. Imperial intelligence services initially struggled to develop accurate assessments of Tau capabilities due to the limited nature of early contacts and the unusual characteristics of Tau technology. Standard Imperial analysis procedures, designed to evaluate threats based on established technological paradigms, proved inadequate for understanding Tau equipment that operated according to different scientific principles. This analytical failure contributed to persistent underestimation of Tau military potential. The establishment of Tau outposts within striking distance of Imperial territory represented a significant escalation in the developing conflict, though Imperial authorities were slow to recognize the strategic implications. These forward positions enabled Tau forces to conduct detailed reconnaissance of Imperial defenses while providing staging areas for larger military operations. The sophisticated nature of Tau fortifications demonstrated engineering capabilities that suggested substantial industrial support. Tau diplomatic overtures to Imperial authorities during this period reflected their preference for negotiated solutions over military conquest. Tau ambassadors attempted to establish formal communications with Imperial governors and military commanders, offering technological cooperation and trade agreements in exchange for territorial concessions. These diplomatic initiatives confused Imperial officials, who lacked experience dealing with alien species that sought negotiation rather than immediate conquest. The Imperial Administratum's response to reports of Tau expansion demonstrated the bureaucratic inefficiencies that often hampered Imperial decision-making processes. Initial reports of alien activity in the Eastern Fringe became lost in administrative channels, delayed by competing priorities and jurisdictional disputes between different Imperial agencies. The time required for proper threat assessment allowed Tau forces to consolidate their positions and expand their territorial holdings without facing coordinated Imperial resistance. Regional Imperial commanders found themselves operating without clear guidance from higher authorities regarding appropriate responses to Tau expansion. The unusual nature of Tau diplomatic overtures and their technological capabilities fell outside standard Imperial protocols for dealing with Xenos threats. This uncertainty led to inconsistent Imperial responses that ranged from aggressive military action to cautious diplomatic engagement, depending on individual commanders' interpretations of their orders. The growing tension along contested borders reflected the fundamental incompatibility between Imperial and Tau expansion philosophies. Imperial doctrine demanded the complete subjugation or elimination of alien species, while Tao philosophy emphasized cooperation and mutual benefit. These irreconcilable worldviews made peaceful coexistence impossible, despite Tao attempts to find diplomatic solutions to territorial disputes. Border skirmishes between Imperial and Tao forces gradually increased in frequency and intensity as both sides established competing claims to strategic star systems. These engagements typically involved patrol vessels and reconnaissance units rather than major fleet actions, but they provided both sides with valuable intelligence about their opponent's capabilities and intentions. The escalating nature of these conflicts made larger confrontations increasingly inevitable. The sporadic border conflicts that had characterized early Imperial Tau contact evolved into systematic confrontations as the 41st millennium progressed, with Tau's second sphere expansion forces demonstrating increasingly aggressive territorial ambitions. Imperial patrol squadrons operating along the eastern fringe began encountering Tau fleets conducting what appeared to be coordinated reconnaissance missions deep within established Imperial space. These incursions extended far beyond the contested border regions, suggesting that Tau expansion efforts had entered a new phase of strategic planning and territorial acquisition. The scale of Tau military operations during this period exceeded all previous estimates of their capabilities. Imperial Navy captains reported encounters with Tau fleets comprising dozens of vessels, including massive explorer-class ships that dwarfed typical Tau patrol craft. These formations operated with precision that indicated sophisticated command and control systems, while their ability to coordinate simultaneous operations across multiple star systems demonstrated logistical capabilities that Imperial analysts had not anticipated. The appearance of these large-scale Tau forces marked a fundamental shift from opportunistic expansion to systematic conquest. Tau ground forces accompanying these naval expeditions displayed equipment and tactics that represented significant advances over their earlier capabilities. Imperial Guard units defending border worlds encountered Tau fire warrior cadres, equipped with improved pulse rifles that demonstrated enhanced range and stopping power. The aliens supporting battlesuit formations incorporated new weapon systems that Imperial technical specialists struggled to classify, while their coordination with auxiliary forces had evolved into seamless combined arms operations that maximized the effectiveness of each component. The loss of the mining world Cronus to Tau forces provided Imperial commanders with their first comprehensive demonstration of Tau siege capabilities. The planet's orbital defenses, consisting of standard Imperial defense platforms and a modest patrol squadron, proved inadequate against the concentrated firepower of a Tau hunter cadre supported by aircast bomber formations. Tau forces systematically eliminated each defensive installation through precise targeting, demonstrating tactical patience that contrasted sharply with the aggressive assault tactics typically employed by other xenos species. The planetary assault that followed revealed sophisticated Tau planning and execution. Rather than launching immediate ground attacks, Tau forces established orbital supremacy before deploying reconnaissance drones that mapped Imperial defensive positions with unprecedented accuracy. This intelligence-gathering phase enabled Tau commanders to identify weak points in Imperial fortifications while avoiding heavily defended areas that would have required costly frontal assaults. The methodical nature of this approach reflected military doctrine that prioritized efficiency over speed. Tau ground operations on Cronus incorporated technological capabilities that Imperial defenders had not previously encountered. Earthcast engineering teams deployed advanced construction equipment that enabled rapid fortification of captured positions, while their ability to establish supply lines under combat conditions demonstrated logistical sophistication that exceeded typical alien capabilities. The integration of Kroot tracking specialists and Vespid assault troops created tactical flexibility that Imperial forces struggled to counter effectively. The fall of Cronus occurred within 6 standard Terran months, a remarkably short timeframe for the conquest of a fortified Imperial world. Tau forces achieved their objectives through a combination of technological superiority and tactical innovation, avoiding the prolonged siege warfare that characterized most planetary conquests. The efficiency of this victory provided Tau commanders with valuable resources, while demonstrating to other Imperial worlds the futility of conventional resistance against Tau expansion. Similar patterns of Tau conquest emerged across multiple border systems as Second Sphere expansion forces applied lessons learned from their initial victories. The agricultural world of Petch fell to Tau forces after a brief campaign that emphasized the aliens' ability to adapt their tactics to local conditions. Rather than destroying the planet's agricultural infrastructure, Tau forces carefully preserved farming facilities while offering the human population integration into their expanding empire under the philosophical framework of the greater good. The Tau approach to conquered populations represented a significant departure from typical xenos behavior patterns that Imperial doctrine had established. Instead of enslaving or exterminating human civilians, Tau administrators offered continued employment in agricultural and industrial sectors under alien supervision. This policy created confusion among Imperial authorities, who lacked established procedures for responding to alien conquest that did not involve immediate population genocide or enslavement. Human auxiliaries serving alongside Tau forces provided Imperial intelligence services with disturbing evidence of successful alien integration policies. Captured Imperial citizens described treatment that contrasted favorably with conditions on many Imperial worlds, including access to advanced medical care and educational opportunities that exceeded what most Imperial citizens could expect. These reports created propaganda challenges for Imperial authorities attempting to maintain morale among populations threatened by Tau expansion. The technological superiority demonstrated by Tau forces during these conquests extended beyond military equipment to encompass civilian infrastructure improvements. Tau Earthcast engineers rapidly upgraded industrial facilities on conquered worlds, implementing production techniques that increased efficiency while reducing environmental impact. These improvements provided tangible benefits to local populations while demonstrating Tau capabilities that Imperial technology could not easily match. Astropathic communications from threatened border regions began reaching Terra with increasing frequency as Imperial commanders recognized the scope of the developing crisis. These messages described alien forces equipped with weapons that operated on unfamiliar principles, supported by sophisticated logistics networks that enabled sustained operations far from established bases. The consistency of these reports across multiple sectors indicated that Imperial forces faced a coordinated expansion effort rather than isolated alien raids. The descriptions of Tau technology contained in these communications caused significant concern among Adeptus Mechanicus technical specialists responsible for threat assessment. Imperial weapons experts struggled to understand energy signatures produced by Tau pulse weapons, while their analysis of captured battlesuit components revealed manufacturing techniques that appeared to violate established principles of Imperial engineering. The aliens' ability to produce equipment that exceeded Imperial performance standards while utilizing apparently inferior industrial capacity suggested technological paradigms that challenged fundamental Imperial assumptions. Reports of human auxiliaries fighting alongside Tau forces created particular alarm among Imperial authorities on Terra. The concept of Imperial citizens voluntarily serving alien masters contradicted basic Imperial doctrine regarding human superiority and xenos corruption. These accounts suggested that Tau influence extended beyond military conquest to encompass ideological conversion, raising concerns about the aliens' ability to undermine Imperial authority through non-military means. The Adeptus Terra's response to these disturbing reports reflected the bureaucratic complexity that characterized Imperial decision-making processes. Initial assessments dismissed early accounts of Tau capabilities as exaggerated battlefield reports, while competing Imperial agencies disputed jurisdiction over the developing crisis. The time required for proper evaluation and authorization delayed effective Imperial response, allowing Tau forces to consolidate their territorial gains while preparing for expanded operations. The Adeptus Munitorum's analysis of resource requirements for countering Tau expansion revealed the massive scale of military commitment that would be necessary to halt alien advances. Standard Imperial doctrine for xenos suppression assumed technological superiority that would enable relatively small Imperial forces to defeat much larger alien armies. The reports from the Eastern Fringe suggested that this assumption no longer applied, requiring fundamental revision of Imperial strategic planning. Military advisors within the Segmentum Solar recognized that conventional Imperial Guard deployments would prove insufficient against Tau forces equipped with advanced technology and supported by sophisticated logistics networks. The aliens' demonstrated ability to coordinate multi-system operations while maintaining supply lines across vast distances indicated military capabilities that required responses beyond typical xenos suppression campaigns. The scale of force deployment necessary to counter Tau expansion approached the levels typically reserved for major Imperial crusades. The authorization of a full-scale crusade against Tau forces represented a significant escalation in Imperial commitment to the Eastern Fringe. This decision required approval from the highest levels of Imperial authority, involving consultations between the Adeptus Terra, Segmentum command structures, and various Imperial agencies responsible for military coordination. The bureaucratic complexity of this authorization process reflected both the magnitude of the proposed response and the political implications of committing substantial Imperial resources to a single theater of operations. The initial muster of Imperial forces for the Damocles Gulf Crusade began with the identification of available Imperial Guard regiments within reasonable deployment range of the target region. This process involved extensive coordination between different Segmentum commands, as the scale of the proposed operation exceeded the resources available within any single administrative region. The Adeptus Munitorum's logistics specialists calculated transportation requirements while identifying suitable staging areas for the massive force concentration that would be necessary. The Cadian shock troops selected for the crusade represented some of the Imperium's most experienced and well-equipped infantry formations. These regiments possessed combat experience against various xenos species while maintaining the disciplined organization necessary for large-scale operations. Their familiarity with combined arms tactics and ability to coordinate with Space Marine forces made them ideal candidates for operations against technologically sophisticated opponents like the Tau. Catachan jungle fighters brought specialized skills that Imperial planners considered essential for operations in the diverse environments of the Damocles Gulf region. Their expertise in reconnaissance and unconventional warfare provided capabilities that complemented the more conventional strengths of line infantry regiments. The Catachans' experience operating in hostile environments without extensive logistical support made them valuable assets for extended operations in contested territory. Tallarn Desert Raiders contributed mechanized capabilities that would prove crucial for operations on the varied terrain types encountered throughout the Damocles Gulf. Their expertise in armored warfare and mobile operations provided Imperial forces with tactical flexibility necessary for countering Tau mobility advantages. The regiment's experience coordinating infantry and armor operations offered proven methods for maximizing Imperial firepower while maintaining operational tempo. The Space Marine chapters selected for the Crusade brought capabilities that no Imperial Guard formation could match. The Ultramarines' tactical expertise and organizational efficiency made them natural candidates for command and coordination roles within the Crusade structure. Their experience in large-scale operations and ability to adapt tactics to local conditions provided Imperial forces with leadership that could respond effectively to Tau innovations. The White Scar's mobility and reconnaissance capabilities offered essential assets for operations against an enemy known for tactical flexibility and rapid deployment. Their expertise in hit and run tactics and deep reconnaissance missions provided Imperial commanders with options for disrupting Tau operations while gathering intelligence about alien capabilities and intentions. The chapter's experience fighting mobile opponents made them particularly valuable for countering Tau expansion efforts. Imperial Fist's contributions focused on siege warfare and defensive operations that would be necessary for securing conquered territory against Tau counterattacks. Their expertise in fortification construction and defensive planning provided Imperial forces with capabilities essential for establishing permanent control over strategic locations. The chapter's methodical approach to warfare complemented the more aggressive tactics of other Imperial units while ensuring sustainable territorial gains. The Raven Guard's stealth capabilities and special operations expertise offered unique assets for disrupting Tau command and control systems. Their ability to conduct covert reconnaissance and targeted strikes against key enemy installations provided Imperial commanders with options for degrading Tau capabilities without direct confrontation. The chapter's experience in unconventional warfare made them ideal for operations behind enemy lines. The logistical requirements for supporting this massive force concentration exceeded anything previously attempted in the Eastern Fringe. Imperial Navy transport fleets began assembling at staging points throughout the segmentum solar, while supply depots accumulated the vast quantities of ammunition, fuel, and equipment necessary for sustained operations. The coordination required for this logistical effort involved multiple Imperial agencies working together on an unprecedented scale. The selection of the Damocles Gulf as the primary theater of operations reflected both strategic necessity and practical considerations. The region's position between established Imperial territory and expanding Tau forces made it the natural focus for decisive confrontation, while its existing Imperial infrastructure provided bases for the massive logistical effort that would be required. The concentration of strategically important worlds within the Gulf created clear objectives for Imperial forces, while offering Tau defenders positions they could not afford to abandon. Intelligence gathering efforts intensified as Imperial forces prepared for deployment, with reconnaissance missions attempting to provide accurate assessments of Tau defensive preparations and military capabilities. These operations revealed the extent of Tau fortification efforts throughout the contested region, while confirming reports of continued alien expansion toward Imperial core territories. The intelligence gathered during this period would prove crucial for tactical planning once combat operations commenced. The authorization of the Damocles Gulf Crusade triggered an immediate struggle for overall command authority that reflected the complex political dynamics governing Imperial military operations. The segmentum solar command structure possessed nominal authority over Eastern Fringe operations, but the scale and strategic importance of the proposed crusade attracted competing claims from multiple Imperial institutions. The Lord Commander Solar's office asserted traditional prerogatives over major military campaigns, while representatives of the Adeptus Astartes argued that the technological sophistication of Tau forces required Space Marine leadership to ensure tactical success. The Adeptus Munitorum's involvement in command selection reflected bureaucratic concerns about resource allocation and logistical coordination. Senior Munitorum officials favored commanders with proven experience managing large-scale deployments, arguing that the Crusade's success would depend more on effective supply management than tactical brilliance. Their preferred candidates included veteran Imperial Guard generals who had demonstrated competence in previous multi-regiment operations, particularly those with experience coordinating diverse unit types across extended campaign periods. The Adeptus Mechanicus presented their own arguments for command influence, emphasizing the technological challenges posed by Tau equipment and the necessity of proper technical analysis during combat operations. Forge World representatives argued that understanding and countering alien technology required mechanicus oversight of tactical decisions, particularly regarding equipment deployment and battlefield recovery of Tau artifacts. These technical considerations carried significant weight given the unusual nature of Tau weapons and the potential intelligence value of captured alien equipment. The eventual selection of overall Crusade leadership represented a compromise between these competing interests that satisfied none of the involved parties completely. The appointment of a senior Imperial Guard general as overall commander provided the Adeptus Munitorum with operational control while incorporating Adeptus Astartes advisors in key planning positions. This command structure attempted to balance political requirements with tactical necessities, though the resulting hierarchy would prove problematic during actual combat operations. The complex command arrangement established separate but interconnected chains of authority for different aspects of the Crusade. Imperial Guard operations remained under direct control of the appointed Crusade commander, while Space Marine chapters retained autonomy over their tactical deployments within the broader strategic framework. The Imperial Navy maintained independent authority over fleet operations and orbital support, creating potential coordination challenges that would become apparent during subsequent combat phases. The mobilization of Imperial Guard regiments from across the Segmentum Solar required unprecedented coordination between multiple planetary governments and military administrators. The selection process prioritized regiments with proven combat effectiveness while considering logistical factors such as transportation requirements and equipment compatibility. The diversity of regimental specializations chosen for the Crusade reflected tactical requirements identified through analysis of Tau capabilities and the varied terrain conditions expected within the Damocles Gulf region. Cadian shock troops formed the backbone of the Crusade's infantry forces, with multiple regiments contributing their full strength to the deployment. The 8th Cadian shock troops brought extensive experience from previous xenos campaigns, including successful operations against Orc warbands and Eldar raiders that had provided valuable lessons in countering mobile alien forces. Their standard equipment loadout included upgraded lasguns with improved power packs and additional heavy weapons teams equipped with las cannons and missile launchers specifically requested for anti-armor operations against Tau battlesuits. The 12th Cadian shock troops contributed specialized urban warfare capabilities developed during suppression campaigns on hive worlds throughout the Segmentum Solar. Their expertise in close-quarters combat and building-to-building fighting complemented the more conventional tactical strengths of line infantry regiments. The regiment's modified equipment included additional breaching charges and compact flamers designed for confined space operations, reflecting lessons learned from previous urban combat experiences. Additional Cadian regiments provided the numerical strength necessary for sustained operations across multiple planetary theaters. The 23rd Cadian shock troops brought mechanized capabilities with integrated Chimera transport support, while the 31st Cadian maintained specialized communications equipment that would prove essential for coordinating large-scale operations. Each regiment contributed approximately 4,000 personnel, along with their organic support elements, creating a substantial Cadian contingent within the overall Crusade structure. Tallarn Desert Raiders added crucial mechanized warfare expertise that Imperial planners considered essential for operations against Tau forces known for their mobility and technological sophistication. The 3rd Tallarn Desert Raiders brought extensive experience with Leman Russ battle tank operations, including variants equipped with specialized ammunition types designed for engaging heavily armored targets. Their tactical doctrine emphasized rapid deployment and concentrated firepower, principles that aligned well with requirements for countering Tau battlesuit formations. The 7th Tallarn Desert Raiders contributed reconnaissance capabilities through their integrated Sentinel Walker squadrons, and specialized scout units trained in long-range surveillance operations. Their experience operating in hostile environments with limited logistical support made them valuable assets for extended operations in contested territory. The regiment's equipment included modified Vox casters with enhanced range capabilities and camouflage netting designed for concealment in varied terrain types. Tallarn armored support included squadrons of Liman Rust demolisher tanks equipped with siege cannons specifically requested for operations against Tau fortifications. These vehicles carried additional armor plating and improved targeting systems that enhanced their effectiveness against precision targets. The integration of Tallarn tank crews with Cadian infantry created combined arms capabilities that maximized the effectiveness of both unit types while providing tactical flexibility for diverse operational requirements. Vistroyan Firstborn regiments brought elite marksmanship capabilities and disciplined fire control that complemented the more aggressive tactics of other Imperial Guard formations. The 2nd Vistroyan Firstborn contributed specialized sniper teams equipped with long-laws rifles and advanced optical equipment designed for precision engagement of high-value targets. Their training emphasized patience and accuracy over rapid fire, creating capabilities particularly valuable for countering Tau fire warrior formations known for their own marksmanship skills. The 9th Vistroyan Firstborn added heavy weapons expertise through their integrated lascannon and auto-cannon teams trained in anti-vehicle operations. Their equipment included tripod-mounted heavy weapons with enhanced stabilization systems that improved accuracy during sustained fire missions. The regiment's tactical doctrine emphasized coordinated fire support and defensive positioning, principles that would prove valuable for establishing fire bases in contested territory. Vistroyan artillery support included batteries of Basilisk self-propelled guns equipped with a variety of ammunition types designed for different tactical situations. High-explosive shells provided area effect capabilities against infantry formations, while armor-piercing rounds offered options for engaging hardened targets. The artillery crews received specialized training in indirect fire coordination and target acquisition techniques that enhanced their effectiveness in supporting infantry operations. Catachan jungle fighters contributed unconventional warfare capabilities that provided Imperial forces with tactical options unavailable through conventional military formations. The 3rd Catachan jungle fighters brought extensive experience in reconnaissance and infiltration operations, including specialized equipment for covert surveillance and sabotage missions. Their expertise in operating behind enemy lines created opportunities for disrupting Tau supply networks and gathering intelligence about alien defensive preparations. The 8th Catachan jungle fighters added close combat specialists trained in knife fighting and hand-to-hand combat techniques that could prove valuable in confined spaces where ranged weapons became less effective. Their equipment included combat knives, frag grenades, and compact shotguns designed for maximum effectiveness at close range. The regiment's aggressive combat style contrasted with the more methodical approaches of other Imperial Guard formations while providing complementary capabilities. Catachan's special operations teams received additional equipment including demolition charges, climbing gear, and specialized communications equipment for coordination with conventional forces. Their training emphasized independent operation and tactical flexibility, enabling them to adapt quickly to changing battlefield conditions. These capabilities made them particularly valuable for operations against technologically sophisticated opponents who might attempt to counter conventional Imperial tactics. Space Marine chapter commitments to the Damocles Gulf Crusade reflected both strategic requirements and political considerations within the Adeptus Astartes. The selection of participating chapters considered their tactical specializations alongside availability and previous experience with xenos opponents. The diversity of chapter capabilities represented in the Crusade force provided Imperial commanders with tactical options for addressing various operational challenges expected during the campaign. Ultramarines' contributions centered on their second company, commanded by Captain Cato Sicarius, whose tactical expertise and leadership experience made him a natural choice for coordinating Space Marine operations within the broader Crusade structure. The company brought full strength of 100 battle brothers organized into tactical, assault, and devastator squads equipped with standard Astartes weaponry, enhanced with additional anti-armor capabilities. Their Rhino transports received upgraded armor plating and improved communication systems for enhanced battlefield coordination. The Ultramarines' tactical doctrine emphasized flexibility and adaptive planning, principles that aligned well with requirements for countering Tau innovations and technological advantages. Their experience in large-scale operations provided valuable expertise for coordinating with Imperial Guard formations while maintaining the independent operational capabilities that characterize Space Marine deployments. The chapter's methodical approach to warfare complemented the more aggressive styles of other participating chapters. Ultramarine support elements included Techmarine specialists equipped for battlefield recovery and analysis of Tau technology. These technical experts brought specialized equipment for examining alien artifacts and assessing technological capabilities that could influence tactical planning. Their expertise in Imperial technology also provided maintenance capabilities essential for sustaining Space Marine equipment during extended operations far from chapter facilities. White Scar's participation focused on their third company's mobility and reconnaissance capabilities, which offered essential assets for operations against an enemy known for tactical flexibility and rapid deployment. The company's bike squadrons and land speeder formations provided Imperial forces with fast-moving reconnaissance and strike capabilities that could match Tau mobility while delivering concentrated firepower against selected targets. Their equipment included additional fuel supplies and maintenance gear necessary for sustained high-mobility operations. The White Scar's tactical specialization in hit and run warfare created opportunities for disrupting Tau operations through rapid strikes against supply lines and command facilities. Their experience fighting mobile opponents provided valuable insights into countering enemy mobility advantages while maximizing the effectiveness of limited Imperial resources. The chapter's aggressive combat style emphasized speed and surprise over sustained engagement, principles that complemented other Imperial tactical approaches. White Scar's reconnaissance capabilities included specialized communications equipment for coordinating with Imperial Guard formations and providing real-time intelligence about enemy movements and defensive preparations. Their scouts received additional training in operating behind enemy lines and identifying high-value targets for subsequent strike missions. These capabilities made them particularly valuable for gathering intelligence about Tau capabilities and intentions during the initial phases of combat operations. Raven Guard contributions emphasized stealth and special operations capabilities that provided Imperial forces with options for covert operations against Tau command and control systems. The chapter's 6th company brought specialized equipment for infiltration missions, including modified power armor with enhanced stealth capabilities and silenced weapons designed for covert elimination of key targets. Their expertise in unconventional warfare offered tactical options unavailable through conventional military approaches. The Raven Guard's tactical doctrine emphasized precision strikes and targeted elimination of enemy leadership, principles that could prove particularly effective against Tau forces dependent on coordinated command structures. Their experience in covert operations provided capabilities for gathering intelligence and conducting sabotage missions that could degrade enemy effectiveness without direct confrontation. The chapter's methodical approach to special operations complemented the more conventional capabilities of other participating formations. Raven Guard support included specialized communications equipment for coordinating covert operations with conventional forces while maintaining operational security. Their scouts received additional training in long-range reconnaissance and target identification techniques that enhanced their effectiveness in gathering intelligence about enemy capabilities and defensive preparations. These capabilities made them valuable assets for planning subsequent operations and identifying opportunities for tactical advantage. The logistical preparations required for supporting the Damocles Gulf Crusade exceeded anything previously attempted in the Eastern Fringe, requiring coordination between multiple Imperial agencies and unprecedented resource allocation. The Imperial Navy's Transport Command assembled massive convoy fleets capable of moving entire regiments, along with their equipment and supplies across the vast distances separating staging areas from operational theaters. The scale of this transportation effort required vessels from multiple fleet commands and careful scheduling to avoid overwhelming individual transport hubs. Imperial Navy fleet assignments included escort squadrons equipped with enhanced sensor arrays and long-range communications equipment for maintaining contact with scattered convoy elements during transit. The escort's primary mission involved protecting transport vessels from potential Tau interdiction while providing early warning of enemy fleet movements. Their secondary responsibilities included reconnaissance of potential staging areas and assessment of local defensive capabilities. Battlefleet Solar contributed heavy cruiser squadrons equipped with bombardment capabilities for orbital fire support during planetary operations. These vessels carried specialized ammunition types designed for different tactical situations, including high explosive shells for area targets and armor-piercing rounds for hardened installations. The fleet's tactical doctrine emphasized precision engagement and coordinated fire support rather than independent naval operations. The Adeptus Mechanicus involvement in Crusade logistics centered on Forge World contributions of specialized equipment and technical expertise, essential for sustained operations against technologically sophisticated opponents. Forge World Lucius provided advanced communications equipment and enhanced sensor systems designed to counter Tau stealth capabilities and electronic warfare techniques. Their technical specialists brought expertise in analyzing alien technology and developing countermeasures for enemy innovations. Forge World Ryza contributed specialized weapons and ammunition designed specifically for anti-armor operations against Tau battlesuits and vehicles. Their plasma weapons and melta-charges offered enhanced penetration capabilities, while their technical experts provided maintenance support for complex Imperial equipment during extended operations. The Forge World's manufacturing capabilities also enabled rapid replacement of damaged equipment and adaptation of existing systems for new tactical requirements. The establishment of supply lines across the vast interstellar distances separating Imperial territory from operational theaters required sophisticated planning and unprecedented resource commitment. Supply depot construction began at strategic locations throughout the Eastern Fringe, with each facility designed to support specific aspects of the overall logistical network. Ammunition storage facilities incorporated security measures against potential Tau infiltration, while fuel depots included redundant systems for maintaining supply continuity despite enemy interdiction attempts. Forward supply bases received enhanced defensive installations, including orbital defense platforms and ground-based anti-aircraft systems, designed to protect crucial logistical assets from Tau attack. These facilities incorporated advanced communications equipment for coordinating supply distribution while maintaining contact with rear area logistics centers. The integration of multiple supply streams required careful scheduling and sophisticated inventory management to ensure adequate resources reached operational units when needed. The coordination of diverse Imperial agencies involved in Crusade preparation revealed both the strengths and limitations of Imperial administrative systems. While the Imperium possessed vast resources and organizational capabilities, the complexity of inter-agency coordination created potential bottlenecks and communication failures that could impact operational effectiveness. The success of the Damocles Gulf Crusade would depend not only on tactical performance, but also on the ability of Imperial logistics to sustain operations across unprecedented distances and timeframes. The deployment of the White Scars Third Company into the Damocles Gulf Theater marked the beginning of the most successful phase of early Imperial operations against Tau expansion forces. Captain Corsaro Khan's tactical assessment of the operational environment identified numerous opportunities for exploiting the White Scars' traditional mobility advantages against Tau defensive positions that relied heavily on static fire bases and coordinated overlapping fields of fire. The chapter's reconnaissance elements had spent weeks conducting covert surveillance of Tau positions throughout the contested region, identifying supply routes and isolated outposts that could be targeted through rapid strike operations. The White Scars' first major operation targeted a Tau supply convoy traveling between the Sept world of K. Simeon and forward positions on the contested world of Black Thunder Mesa. Imperial intelligence had identified this route as crucial for maintaining Tau fire cast units deployed in advanced positions, carrying specialized ammunition for pulse weapons and replacement parts for battlesuit systems. The convoy consisted of 12 Devilfish transports escorted by 6 Hammerhead gunships, following a predictable schedule that enabled precise tactical planning. The ambush commenced at dawn as the Tau convoy entered a narrow canyon passage that restricted their maneuverability while providing concealment for attacking Imperial forces. White Scars bike squadrons positioned themselves on elevated terrain overlooking the convoy route, while land speeder formations took concealed positions at the canyon's exit point to prevent enemy withdrawal. The tactical coordination required split-second timing to ensure simultaneous engagement from multiple directions, while maintaining escape routes for Imperial forces. The initial assault focused on eliminating Tau escort vehicles through concentrated anti-armor fire from multiple land speeders equipped with multi-meltas and heavy bolters. The Hammerhead gunships, caught in the confined space of the canyon passage, could not effectively utilize their railgun armament against fast-moving targets positioned above their primary firing arcs. 2 Hammerhead tanks suffered catastrophic damage within the first 30 seconds of engagement, their crews unable to respond effectively to attacks from unexpected angles. White Scars bike squadrons descended from their elevated positions in coordinated waves, their bolters and plasma guns targeting Tau fire warriors attempting to establish defensive perimeters around the surviving transport vehicles. The speed of the Imperial assault prevented effective coordination between different Tau units, while the confined terrain negated the aliens' usual advantages in long-range precision fire. Individual fire warriors found themselves isolated from their squad leaders and unable to establish the overlapping fields of fire that characterized effective Tau defensive tactics. The destruction of the convoy required less than 8 minutes of actual combat, with Imperial forces withdrawing before Tau reinforcements could arrive from nearby positions. The White Scars recovered substantial intelligence materials, including tactical communications equipment and supply manifests that revealed the locations of additional Tau logistics facilities. The captured supplies included advanced targeting systems for battlesuit weapons and specialized ammunition types that Imperial technical specialists had not previously encountered. This successful raid established the tactical template that would characterize White Scars operations throughout the initial phases of the Damocles Gulf Crusade. The combination of detailed reconnaissance, precise timing, and overwhelming firepower concentrated at selected points enabled Imperial forces to achieve tactical victories against superior numbers of Tau defenders. The psychological impact of these sudden attacks created uncertainty among Tau commanders who had grown accustomed to fighting opponents that relied on predictable frontal assault tactics. The expansion of White Scars operations to target isolated Sept worlds demonstrated the chapter's ability to conduct strategic-level raids deep within Tau-controlled territory. The agricultural world of Kelshan presented an attractive target due to its limited defensive installations and crucial role in supplying food to Tau military forces throughout the region. Imperial reconnaissance identified the planet's primary spaceport and food processing facilities as vulnerable to rapid strike operations that could significantly disrupt Tau logistics without requiring sustained occupation. The assault on Kelshin commenced with simultaneous strikes against the planet's orbital defense platforms and surface-based anti-aircraft installations. White Scar's Thunderhawk gunships approached the target from multiple vectors, utilizing electronic countermeasures to confuse Tau's sensor systems while delivering precision strikes against key defensive positions. The coordinated nature of these attacks overwhelmed Tau defensive responses, creating gaps in their coverage that enabled follow-up operations by ground forces. The planetary assault force consisted of 3 full bike squadrons supported by land speeder formations and a single tactical squad equipped for rapid deployment operations. This relatively small force achieved tactical surprise through simultaneous attacks on widely separated targets, creating the impression of a much larger Imperial presence while preventing effective Tau coordination. The speed of Imperial movement between targets meant that Tau defenders could not predict where the next attack would occur. The destruction of Kelshin's primary food processing facility required careful coordination between different White Scar's elements to ensure complete mission success while maintaining operational security for withdrawal operations. Bike squadrons established perimeter security, while assault specialists placed demolition charges at crucial structural points within the facility. The resulting explosions destroyed months of accumulated food supplies, while eliminating the industrial equipment necessary for continued production. Tau Firecast response forces arrived at the processing facility approximately 20 minutes after the initial Imperial assault, finding only burning ruins and scattered debris where their crucial supply installation had operated. The White Scars had withdrawn to predetermined rally points before launching secondary attacks against the planet's communications center and vehicle maintenance depot. These follow-up strikes maintained pressure on Tau defenders while gathering additional intelligence about alien defensive capabilities and response procedures. The psychological impact of the Kelshin raid extended far beyond its immediate tactical consequences, creating uncertainty among Tau commanders throughout the Damocles Gulf region about Imperial capabilities and intentions. Tau doctrine emphasized careful planning and methodical execution of military operations, principles that became difficult to maintain when facing opponents who could strike anywhere without warning. The unpredictability of White Scar's operations forced Tau forces to disperse their defensive assets while maintaining constant vigilance against potential attacks. Similar raids against other isolated Tau positions demonstrated the effectiveness of Imperial mobility against static defensive installations that relied on coordinated fire support and overlapping coverage zones. The mining world of Taros fell victim to White Scar's strikes that targeted its ore processing facilities and transportation infrastructure, while the research station on Pavan suffered attacks that destroyed crucial experimental equipment and eliminated key technical personnel. Each successful operation provided Imperial forces with valuable intelligence while degrading Tau capabilities across multiple sectors. The cumulative effect of these raids began creating serious logistical problems for Tau forces attempting to maintain their expansion efforts while defending against unpredictable Imperial attacks. Supply convoys required increasingly heavy escorts that reduced the efficiency of Tau transportation networks, while the need to garrison previously secure facilities diverted military resources from offensive operations. The White Scars had successfully forced their opponents into a reactive posture that played to Imperial strengths while negating Tau technological advantages. The response of Tau Firecast commanders to these ongoing raids revealed both their tactical sophistication and the limitations imposed by their doctrinal approaches to warfare. Shassel Myen, commanding Tau forces in the contested Kelshin sector, implemented countermeasures that included increased patrol frequency and the establishment of rapid response forces equipped with crisis battlesuits capable of matching Imperial mobility. These defensive improvements reduced the effectiveness of subsequent White Scars operations while demonstrating Tau adaptability to changing tactical conditions. The deployment of Tau Pathfinder teams equipped with advanced reconnaissance equipment created new challenges for White Scars operations that had previously relied on achieving complete tactical surprise. These specialized Tau units possessed sensor capabilities that could detect approaching Imperial forces at extended ranges, providing early warning that enabled defensive preparations. The presence of Pathfinder teams forced White Scars commanders to modify their operational procedures while developing new techniques for avoiding detection during approach phases. Tau technological advantages became increasingly apparent as their forces adapted to Imperial mobility tactics through the deployment of specialized equipment designed to counter fast-moving targets. The introduction of Skyray missile defense systems provided Tau positions with effective anti-aircraft capabilities that threatened Imperial land speeder formations, while improved communication systems enabled faster coordination between different defensive elements. These technological countermeasures began limiting the tactical options available to White Scars commanders. The evolution of Tau defensive tactics under ethereal guidance demonstrated their ability to learn from combat experience while maintaining doctrinal coherence across multiple operational theaters. Onal Kayan's strategic oversight ensured that lessons learned from encounters with White Scars forces were systematically incorporated into defensive planning throughout the Damocles Gulf region. This coordinated adaptation process enabled Tau forces to develop effective countermeasures while maintaining the tactical flexibility necessary for continued expansion operations. The limitations of the White Scars Lightning War approach became apparent as Tau forces implemented increasingly sophisticated defensive measures that reduced Imperial tactical advantages. The aliens' ability to coordinate multiple defensive systems through advanced communications networks created overlapping coverage zones that were difficult to penetrate without sustaining significant casualties. The technological superiority that enabled Tau forces to detect and engage fast-moving targets at extended ranges gradually eroded the element of surprise that had characterized early White Scars successes. The deployment of Tau aircast fighter formations, specifically tasked with countering Imperial mobility operations, marked a significant escalation in alien defensive capabilities. These Barracuda interceptors possessed speed and maneuverability that matched Imperial land speeders while carrying weapons systems designed for engaging fast-moving targets. The presence of dedicated air defense assets forced White Scars commanders to reconsider their operational approaches while developing new tactics for avoiding or defeating aerial opposition. The increasing effectiveness of Tau countermeasures gradually reduced the strategic impact of White Scars operations while highlighting the limitations of mobility-based tactics against technologically sophisticated opponents. The aliens' ability to adapt their defensive systems to counter specific Imperial approaches demonstrated the sophisticated command and control capabilities that enabled coordinated responses across multiple operational theaters. The success of these adaptations suggested that continued reliance on Lightning War tactics would yield diminishing returns as Tau forces developed more effective countermeasures. The strategic assessment conducted by Captain Corsaro Khan following several months of operations identified both the achievements and limitations of the White Scars Lightning War campaign. While Imperial forces had successfully disrupted Tau logistics and eliminated numerous isolated positions, the aliens' adaptive responses had begun negating many of the tactical advantages that had characterized early operations. The need for new approaches became apparent as Tau technological superiority and coordinated defensive measures reduced the effectiveness of traditional hit-and-run tactics. The lessons learned from White Scars operations provided valuable intelligence about Tau capabilities and defensive procedures that would influence subsequent Imperial tactical planning throughout the Damocles Gulf Crusade. The aliens' demonstrated ability to adapt quickly to changing tactical conditions while maintaining doctrinal coherence suggested that successful Imperial operations would require constant innovation and tactical flexibility. The psychological impact of Astartes' warfare had proven significant but temporary, as Tau commanders developed effective countermeasures through systematic analysis of Imperial operational patterns. The strategic significance of Daleth Prime as the Tau Empire's primary commercial and logistical hub made its capture an essential objective for Imperial forces seeking to cripple alien expansion capabilities throughout the Damocles Gulf region. The Sept world's massive orbital docking facilities processed the majority of trade flowing between different Tau colonies, while its surface installations coordinated supply distribution to fire task forces operating across multiple sectors. Imperial intelligence assessments identified Daleth Prime as the single most valuable target in Tau-controlled space, whose capture would severely disrupt alien operations while providing crucial resources for continued Imperial expansion. The planet's defensive preparations reflected both its strategic importance and the Tau Empire's commitment to protecting their most vital commercial center. Orbital defense platforms surrounded Daleth Prime in multiple defensive rings, each equipped with railgun batteries and missile systems capable of engaging Imperial vessels at extreme ranges. The integration of these platforms with surface-based ion cannon installations created overlapping fields of fire that covered all major approach vectors while providing redundant coverage against potential Imperial breakthrough attempts. Ground-based defensive installations incorporated the most advanced Tau military technology available, including experimental weapon systems that had not been deployed elsewhere in the Empire. The planet's primary spaceport featured automated defense turrets equipped with burst cannons and smart missile systems, while the commercial districts contained concealed battlesuit deployment bays that could rapidly deploy crisis teams to threatened sectors. The sophistication of these defensive measures exceeded anything Imperial forces had previously encountered during their operations against Tau positions. The civilian population of Daleth Prime presented unique challenges for Imperial assault planning, as the planet housed millions of Tau civilians, along with substantial numbers of human auxiliaries who had voluntarily joined the Tau Empire. Imperial doctrine regarding xenos populations typically emphasized complete extermination, but the presence of human collaborators created political complications that required careful consideration. The Adeptus Munitorum's legal advisors struggled to develop appropriate protocols for handling populations that included both legitimate military targets and Imperial citizens who had committed treason through collaboration with alien forces. The Earth-cast installations scattered throughout Daleth Prime's industrial sectors represented significant intelligence targets whose capture could provide Imperial forces with unprecedented insights into Tau technology and manufacturing capabilities. These facilities produced advanced battlesuit components, sophisticated communications equipment, and experimental weapon systems that Imperial technical specialists had only encountered as battlefield debris. The potential intelligence value of intact Earth-cast equipment motivated Imperial planners to modify their assault strategies to emphasize capture rather than destruction of key industrial targets. The Imperial fleet assigned to the Daleth Prime operation represented the largest concentration of naval power deployed during the Damocles Gulf Crusade, including multiple battle cruiser squadrons and specialized bombardment vessels equipped for extended siege operations. The flagship Emperor's Wrath carried enhanced communications equipment for coordinating the complex multi-phase assault, while its massive lance batteries provided the firepower necessary for eliminating heavily fortified orbital installations. Supporting vessels included transport squadrons carrying the assault forces and supply ships loaded with the specialized ammunition required for prolonged siege warfare. Battlefleet Solar's contribution to the naval forces included the battle cruiser Dominus Astra, whose crew possessed extensive experience in orbital bombardment operations against fortified xenos positions. The vessel's weapons batteries had been modified with specialized targeting systems designed for precision strikes against surface installations while minimizing collateral damage to valuable infrastructure. The ship's Adeptus Mechanicus technical specialists brought expertise in analyzing alien technology and coordinating recovery operations for captured equipment. The preliminary bombardment phase began with systematic elimination of Daleth Prime's outer orbital defense platforms through coordinated land strikes from multiple Imperial vessels. The aliens' defensive installations demonstrated impressive resilience, with their advanced shielding systems absorbing tremendous amounts of energy before suffering critical damage. Imperial gunners required multiple volleys to eliminate individual platforms, while Tau return fire inflicted significant damage on several Imperial cruisers that approached too closely to enemy positions. Tau defensive responses during the orbital engagement revealed tactical sophistication that exceeded Imperial expectations for alien military capabilities. The coordinated fire from multiple defense platforms created concentrated kill zones that Imperial vessels could not traverse without sustaining heavy damage, while the aliens' targeting systems demonstrated accuracy that matched Imperial gunnery standards. The defensive battle lasted for 6 standard days before Imperial forces achieved sufficient orbital superiority to commence ground operations. The ground assault phase required unprecedented coordination between multiple Imperial Guard regiments and supporting Space Marine formations, with each unit assigned specific objectives within the overall operational framework. Cadian shock troops received responsibility for securing the planet's primary spaceport and adjacent commercial districts, while Tallarn Desert Raiders targeted the industrial sectors containing Earth-cast manufacturing facilities. The complexity of coordinating simultaneous operations across multiple sectors tested Imperial command and control capabilities while creating opportunities for tactical confusion. The initial planetary landings encountered fierce resistance from Tau fire cast units equipped with the latest battlesuit technology and supported by extensive drone formations. Imperial drop pods faced concentrated anti-aircraft fire from automated defense systems that demonstrated targeting accuracy far exceeding typical xenos capabilities. Several Cadian companies suffered heavy casualties during their descent, with entire squads eliminated by precise railgun fire before reaching the planetary surface. Tau ground defensive strategies emphasized mobility and concentrated firepower rather than static defensive positions, creating tactical challenges that Imperial forces had not anticipated based on previous encounters with alien forces. Crisis battlesuit teams conducted hit-and-run attacks against Imperial landing zones, utilizing their jump capabilities to engage Imperial forces from unexpected angles before withdrawing to prepared positions. The aliens' ability to coordinate these mobile operations through advanced communication systems prevented Imperial forces from predicting enemy movements or establishing secure perimeters. The deployment of Tau drone swarms against Imperial infantry formations demonstrated technological capabilities that Imperial commanders had not previously encountered in such concentrated numbers. These automated units operated with tactical coordination that suggested sophisticated artificial intelligence systems, while their weapons delivered firepower equivalent to Imperial heavy weapons teams. The drone's ability to operate independently while maintaining coordination with Tau fire warrior units created tactical flexibility that Imperial forces struggled to counter effectively. Imperial Guard responses to Tau mobile tactics required significant modifications to standard operational procedures developed for fighting conventional opponents. Cadian officers discovered that traditional defensive formations became vulnerable to battlesuit attacks from unexpected directions, while the aliens' precision targeting eliminated exposed heavy weapons teams before they could engage effectively. The need for constant movement and dispersed formations conflicted with Imperial training that emphasized disciplined fire and coordinated unit actions. The Siege of Daleth Prime's primary commercial district evolved into prolonged urban warfare that highlighted the fundamental differences between Imperial and Tau approaches to military operations. Imperial forces relied on overwhelming firepower and systematic destruction of enemy positions, while Tau defenders utilized precision strikes and tactical withdrawal to preserve their forces while inflicting maximum casualties on attacking Imperial units. The contrast between these tactical philosophies created a grinding war of attrition that favored neither side decisively. Tallarn Desert raiders operating in the industrial sectors encountered different challenges as they attempted to capture intact Earth caste facilities while facing determined Tau resistance. The aliens had prepared extensive booby traps and automated defense systems that activated when Imperial forces approached valuable installations. These defensive measures included concealed battlesuit deployment systems that could rapidly deploy crisis teams directly into Imperial rear areas, creating tactical confusion that disrupted coordinated assault operations. The technological sophistication of Tau defensive systems became increasingly apparent as Imperial forces attempted to neutralize automated installations that operated independently of direct Tau control. Imperial engineers discovered that standard demolition techniques proved ineffective against alien equipment that incorporated self-repair capabilities and redundant control systems. The aliens' ability to maintain defensive operations through automated systems enabled continued resistance even after fire caste units had withdrawn from specific sectors. Space Marine involvement in the siege operations focused on eliminating key Tau command installations and disrupting alien coordination capabilities through targeted strikes against communications centers. Ultramarines tactical squads conducted precision assaults against heavily fortified positions that Imperial Guard units could not approach without sustaining prohibitive casualties. The Astartes' superior equipment and training enabled them to penetrate Tau defensive lines while maintaining tactical flexibility necessary for rapid withdrawal when faced with overwhelming opposition. The prolonged nature of the siege created logistical challenges that tested Imperial supply capabilities while demonstrating the effectiveness of Tau defensive planning. Imperial forces required constant resupply of ammunition and replacement equipment, as the aliens' precision targeting eliminated Imperial heavy weapons and vehicles at rates that exceeded normal combat expectations. The need to maintain multiple supply lines to different operational sectors created vulnerabilities that Tau forces exploited through coordinated attacks against Imperial logistics convoys. Tau counterbatteries targeting Imperial artillery positions demonstrated the aliens' ability to locate and engage Imperial fire support assets through sophisticated sensor networks and coordinated reconnaissance operations. Imperial Basilisk batteries found themselves under constant threat from Tau Hammerhead gunships and missile-equipped crisis teams that could approach undetected through the urban terrain. The loss of artillery support forced Imperial infantry units to rely on direct fire weapons against fortified positions that had been designed to withstand such attacks. The industrial warfare that developed during the siege revealed the extent of Tau technological advantages in precision manufacturing and automated production systems. Earth caste facilities continued operating even under Imperial bombardment, producing replacement equipment and ammunition for Tau defensive forces through automated systems that required minimal direct supervision. Imperial forces discovered that capturing these facilities required specialized technical expertise that exceeded the capabilities of standard assault troops. Adeptus Mechanicus technical specialists accompanying Imperial forces provided crucial expertise in analyzing captured Tau technology while developing countermeasures for alien defensive systems. These tech adepts identified fundamental differences in Tau engineering principles that enabled their equipment to operate with efficiency levels that Imperial technology could not match. The aliens' integration of artificial intelligence systems into their military equipment created capabilities that challenged basic Imperial assumptions about machine consciousness and technological limitations. The siege's progression demonstrated the effectiveness of Tau defensive doctrine when applied to urban warfare scenarios that maximized their technological advantages while minimizing Imperial numerical superiority. The aliens' ability to coordinate defensive operations through multiple command levels enabled flexible responses to changing tactical situations while maintaining overall strategic coherence. Imperial forces found themselves engaged in a grinding campaign of attrition that played to Tau's strengths while negating many traditional Imperial advantages. The psychological impact of prolonged siege warfare began affecting Imperial morale as casualties mounted without corresponding territorial gains that justified the enormous resource expenditure. Imperial Guard units accustomed to rapid victory through overwhelming firepower found themselves engaged in methodical building fighting that required constant vigilance against Tau counterattacks. The aliens' ability to maintain defensive operations despite heavy casualties created uncertainty among Imperial commanders about the ultimate feasibility of capturing Daleth Prime through conventional assault methods. Tau defensive innovations during the siege included the deployment of experimental weapon systems that had not been encountered during previous Imperial operations against alien forces. These advanced technologies included enhanced railgun systems with improved targeting capabilities and experimental pulse weapons that delivered increased damage against Imperial armor. The appearance of these new weapon types suggested that Tau Earth caste engineers were rapidly developing countermeasures specifically designed to defeat Imperial equipment and tactics. The coordination between different Tau castes during the defensive operations demonstrated the effectiveness of their social organization in maintaining military effectiveness under extreme pressure. Fire caste warriors received constant support from Earth caste engineers who maintained equipment and constructed defensive positions, while water caste coordinators managed civilian evacuation and resource distribution. This integrated approach to defensive operations enabled Tau forces to maintain combat effectiveness while protecting non-combatant populations. Imperial recognition of Tau organizational effectiveness led to tactical modifications that emphasized disrupting alien command and control systems rather than attempting to overwhelm their defensive positions through direct assault. Special operations teams received missions to eliminate key Tau leaders and destroy communications equipment that enabled coordinated defensive responses. These targeted operations achieved limited success due to the redundant nature of Tau command systems and their ability to maintain operational effectiveness despite leadership casualties. The siege of Daleth Prime continued for months as both sides adapted their tactics to counter enemy innovations, while seeking decisive advantages that could break the strategic deadlock. Imperial forces maintained pressure on Tau defensive positions while developing new approaches to urban warfare that incorporated lessons learned from prolonged combat against technologically sophisticated opponents. The aliens' continued resistance demonstrated their commitment to defending their most important commercial center, while revealing the true extent of Tau military capabilities when applied to defensive operations. The prolonged siege of Daleth Prime had demonstrated the limitations of conventional Imperial assault tactics against sophisticated Tau defensive systems, but the aliens' response to these sustained attacks would reveal military capabilities that exceeded even the most pessimistic Imperial intelligence assessments. The emergence of Commander Shadowsun as the primary Tau military leader marked a fundamental shift in alien strategic thinking, introducing tactical innovations that would transform the nature of warfare throughout the Damocles Gulf region. Her appointment to overall command of fire caste forces reflected both her exceptional combat record and the Tau Empire's recognition that conventional defensive strategies would prove insufficient against the massive Imperial commitment to the Crusade. Shadowsun's military philosophy differed significantly from the methodical approaches that had characterized earlier Tau operations, emphasizing aggressive counterattacks and precision strikes that exploited Imperial weaknesses while maximizing the effectiveness of limited Tau resources. Her tactical doctrine incorporated lessons learned from extensive analysis of Imperial operational patterns, identifying consistent vulnerabilities in Imperial Guard coordination and supply management that could be exploited through carefully planned offensive operations. The commander's innovative approach to battlesuit warfare would introduce tactical concepts that Imperial forces had never encountered, creating new categories of threat that existing Imperial doctrine could not adequately address. The development of Shadowsun's stealth battlesuit represented a technological breakthrough that fundamentally altered the tactical balance throughout the contested region. This advanced XV-22 stealth suit incorporated camouflage systems that rendered the wearer virtually invisible to Imperial sensors while maintaining full combat effectiveness and mobility. The suit's sophisticated electronics could mimic background radiation signatures and thermal patterns, enabling the wearer to approach Imperial positions undetected even when enemy forces maintained active surveillance. The integration of advanced targeting systems with stealth capabilities created a weapons platform that could deliver devastating precision strikes against high-value targets while remaining undetectable until the moment of attack. The tactical applications of stealth technology extended far beyond individual combat effectiveness, enabling Shadowsun to conduct reconnaissance missions that provided unprecedented intelligence about Imperial defensive preparations and command structures. Her ability to penetrate Imperial perimeters without detection allowed direct observation of enemy planning sessions and tactical briefings, providing insights into Imperial intentions that conventional intelligence gathering could never achieve. These reconnaissance capabilities enabled Tau forces to anticipate Imperial operations while identifying specific vulnerabilities that could be exploited through targeted countermeasures. Shadowsun's first major operation against Imperial forces targeted the command structure of the 23rd Cadian Shock Troops, whose regimental headquarters had been established in a heavily fortified compound outside Daleth Prime's industrial district. Imperial security measures included multiple perimeter checkpoints, automated sentry systems, and regular patrol schedules designed to prevent unauthorized access to sensitive areas. The compound's defensive arrangements reflected standard Imperial protocols for protecting high-value command installations, incorporating overlapping fields of observation and redundant security systems that should have detected any approaching threats. The infiltration commenced during the pre-dawn hours when Imperial surveillance systems experienced maximum difficulty distinguishing between legitimate patrol movements and potential hostile contacts. Shadowsun's approach route avoided established patrol patterns while utilizing natural terrain features that provided concealment from automated sensors. Her stealth suit's advanced camouflage systems adapted continuously to changing environmental conditions, maintaining invisibility despite variations in lighting and atmospheric conditions that would have compromised conventional concealment techniques. The elimination of Imperial command personnel required precision timing and intimate knowledge of enemy operational procedures that Shadowsun had acquired through weeks of covert surveillance. Her targeting priorities focused on key staff officers, whose elimination would create maximum disruption to Imperial coordination capabilities while avoiding detection for as long as possible. The use of silenced pulse weapons enabled sequential elimination of multiple targets without alerting nearby Imperial forces, while the stealth suit's mobility systems allowed rapid movement between different locations within the compound. The discovery of the command staff casualties occurred only after Shadowsun had withdrawn to a predetermined extraction point several kilometers from the Imperial compound. The systematic nature of the eliminations and the complete absence of evidence regarding the attacker's identity created confusion among surviving Imperial officers who could not explain how their security measures had been circumvented. The psychological impact of these mysterious deaths extended far beyond their immediate tactical consequences, creating uncertainty about Imperial security capabilities and forcing commanders to question the effectiveness of established defensive procedures. Similar precision strikes against Imperial supply convoys demonstrated Shadow Sun's ability to disrupt enemy logistics through targeted elimination of key personnel, rather than direct confrontation with escort forces. Her tactical approach emphasized identifying and eliminating convoy commanders, communications specialists, and technical personnel whose loss would render entire supply operations ineffective. These surgical strikes created logistical disruptions that exceeded the impact of conventional attacks against supply vehicles, while the mysterious nature of the casualties created psychological pressure that affected Imperial morale throughout the operational theater. The implementation of Koyan tactical philosophy under Shadow Sun's leadership represented a sophisticated evolution of traditional Tau defensive strategies that incorporated aggressive counterattack elements designed to exploit Imperial predictability. This patient hunter approach emphasized careful observation of enemy behavioral patterns while preparing coordinated strikes that would achieve maximum effect through precise timing and overwhelming local superiority. The doctrine required extensive intelligence gathering and tactical patience, principles that aligned perfectly with Shadow Sun's stealth capabilities and analytical approach to warfare. Koyan operations typically began with extended surveillance phases during which Tau forces studied Imperial movement patterns, communication procedures, and tactical responses to various stimuli. This intelligence gathering process enabled Tau commanders to predict enemy reactions to specific situations while identifying optimal moments for launching coordinated attacks. The sophistication of this approach required unprecedented coordination between different Tau units and extensive preparation that could take weeks or months to complete properly. The tactical execution of Koyan strikes demonstrated the effectiveness of patient preparation combined with overwhelming force concentration at selected points of Imperial vulnerability. Tau forces would remain concealed in prepared positions for extended periods, allowing Imperial forces to establish predictable operational routines before launching coordinated attacks that exploited these patterns. The sudden transition from passive observation to aggressive assault created tactical surprise that Imperial forces could not counter effectively, while the precision of Tau targeting eliminated key enemy assets before effective responses could be organized. The psychological warfare aspects of Koyan operations proved as effective as their immediate tactical results, creating uncertainty among Imperial commanders who could never predict when or where the next Tau attack would occur. The extended periods of apparent Tau inactivity lulled Imperial forces into false confidence, while the sudden violence of coordinated strikes created lasting impressions of Tau capabilities that influenced subsequent Imperial tactical decisions. This combination of patience and precision became a signature characteristic of Shadow Sun's command style that Imperial forces struggled to counter effectively. Montka tactical philosophy provided the aggressive counterpart to Koyan patience, emphasizing rapid deployment and concentrated firepower designed to achieve decisive results through overwhelming local superiority. The killing blow doctrine incorporated lessons learned from White Scar's lightning warfare while adapting these concepts to Tau technological capabilities and operational requirements. Shadow Sun's implementation of Montka tactics created new categories of threat that Imperial forces had not previously encountered, combining the speed of hit and run operations with the precision and coordination that characterized advanced Tau military technology. Montka operations typically commenced with rapid deployment of multiple Tau units against carefully selected Imperial targets, utilizing superior mobility and communications to achieve tactical surprise while maintaining coordination between different attack elements. The doctrine emphasized achieving decisive results through concentrated application of firepower rather than prolonged engagement, enabling Tau forces to inflict maximum damage while minimizing their own casualties through rapid withdrawal after mission completion. This approach maximized the effectiveness of limited Tau resources while exploiting Imperial weaknesses in rapid response and tactical flexibility. The coordination required for effective Montka operations demonstrated the sophisticated command and control capabilities that enabled Tau forces to maintain tactical coherence during high-speed operations across multiple engagement zones. Shadowsun's personal involvement in these operations provided real-time tactical leadership, while her stealth capabilities enabled reconnaissance and target designation that enhanced the effectiveness of supporting units. The integration of her individual capabilities with larger Tau formations created tactical synergies that Imperial forces could not replicate through their existing organizational structures. The combination of Koyan and Montka philosophies under Shadowsun's strategic oversight created a comprehensive tactical framework that adapted to specific operational requirements while maintaining consistent pressure on Imperial forces throughout the contested region. Patient observation phases enabled identification of optimal targets for rapid strike operations, while the threat of sudden attacks forced Imperial commanders to maintain constant vigilance that degraded their operational effectiveness over extended periods. This integrated approach to tactical planning represented a significant evolution in Tau military doctrine that reflected both technological capabilities and sophisticated understanding of Imperial weaknesses. The targeting of Imperial command structures became a consistent priority throughout Shadowsun's operations, reflecting her recognition that disrupting enemy coordination capabilities would prove more effective than attempting to defeat Imperial forces through direct confrontation. Her stealth capabilities enabled penetration of heavily defended command installations that conventional Tau forces could not approach without sustaining prohibitive casualties. The systematic elimination of Imperial staff officers and communications personnel created cascading effects that disrupted enemy operations across multiple sectors while requiring minimal Tau resources. Imperial responses to these command-focused attacks revealed fundamental vulnerabilities in their hierarchical organization that Tau forces exploited through increasingly sophisticated targeting procedures. The loss of senior officers created leadership vacuums that Imperial replacement procedures could not fill quickly enough to maintain operational effectiveness, while the destruction of communications equipment isolated surviving commanders from their subordinate units. These disruptions forced Imperial forces to operate with reduced coordination capabilities that negated many of their traditional advantages in large-scale operations. The precision strikes against Imperial supply lines demonstrated Shadowsun's understanding that logistical disruption could achieve strategic effects that exceeded the impact of conventional military victories. Her targeting priorities focused on eliminating key personnel and destroying specialized equipment rather than simply interdicting supply convoys, creating long-term disruptions that affected Imperial operations for weeks or months after individual attacks. The cumulative effect of these logistical strikes forced Imperial commanders to divert substantial resources to convoy protection while reducing the efficiency of their supply networks. Tau technological advantages became increasingly apparent as Shadowsun's operations revealed the extent of alien capabilities in precision targeting and battlefield intelligence gathering. Her stealth suit sensor systems provided targeting data that enabled supporting Tau units to engage Imperial forces with accuracy that exceeded Imperial expectations for alien gunnery. The integration of advanced communication systems with stealth technology created coordination capabilities that enabled real-time tactical adjustments during complex operations involving multiple Tau units across extended operational areas. The deployment of specialized Tau units in support of Shadowsun's operations demonstrated the Empire's commitment to developing new tactical capabilities specifically designed to counter Imperial strengths while maximizing alien advantages. Pathfinder teams equipped with advanced reconnaissance equipment provided intelligence support that enhanced the effectiveness of stealth operations, while crisis battlesuit formations received modified equipment loadouts optimized for rapid strike missions. These specialized capabilities represented significant investments in military development that reflected Tau recognition of the strategic importance of the Damocles Gulf conflict. Imperial casualties resulting from Shadowsun's operations exceeded all previous losses to Tau forces, while demonstrating the effectiveness of precision targeting against key personnel and equipment. The systematic nature of these casualties created patterns that Imperial intelligence analysts struggled to understand, as conventional threat assessment procedures could not account for the sophisticated targeting priorities that characterized Tau operations. The loss of experienced officers and technical specialists created capability gaps that Imperial replacement procedures could not address quickly enough to maintain operational effectiveness. The growing recognition of Tau military competence among Imperial Crusade commanders reflected both the immediate tactical impact of Shadowsun's operations and the broader strategic implications of alien technological capabilities. Senior Imperial officers who had initially dismissed Tau forces as typical xenos raiders were forced to acknowledge that they faced opponents whose military capabilities matched or exceeded Imperial standards in several crucial areas. This recognition required fundamental revisions to Imperial tactical doctrine and operational planning that acknowledged Tau's strengths while seeking to exploit remaining alien weaknesses. The adaptation of Imperial security procedures in response to Tau's stealth capabilities demonstrated both the effectiveness of Shadowsun's operations and the limitations of Imperial countermeasures against advanced alien technology. Enhanced patrol schedules and improved sensor coverage provided marginal improvements in detection capabilities, but these measures could not completely eliminate the threat posed by stealth-equipped opponents who possessed intimate knowledge of Imperial operational patterns. The resource requirements for effective security against stealth attacks forced Imperial commanders to make difficult choices between offensive capabilities and defensive necessities. The strategic implications of Shadowsun's tactical innovations extended far beyond their immediate impact on Crusade operations, suggesting fundamental changes in the nature of warfare that would affect Imperial military doctrine throughout the Eastern Fringe. The combination of advanced technology with sophisticated tactical planning created new categories of threat that existing Imperial procedures could not address effectively. The success of these innovations provided other Tau commanders with proven methods for countering Imperial advantages, while demonstrating the effectiveness of coordinated multi-cast operations in achieving strategic objectives against numerically superior opponents. The emergence of Hive Fleet Gorgon in the Damocles Gulf region occurred without warning during the height of Shadowsun's most successful operations against Imperial Crusade forces. Long-range auger arrays stationed on the outer rim of the contested zone detected massive biosignatures approaching from the galactic east, moving with the characteristic purposeful drift that Imperial Navy officers had learned to associate with Tyranid Hive fleets. The initial sensor readings suggested a relatively modest Tyranid presence, perhaps a splinter fleet separated from one of the larger Hive fleets that had previously ravaged Imperial territory. This assessment would prove catastrophically incorrect, as the true scale of Hive Fleet Gorgon became apparent over the following weeks. Imperial astropaths throughout the region began experiencing severe psychic disturbances as the Tyranid fleet approached, their sensitive minds detecting the alien presence through the warp long before conventional sensors could provide accurate readings. These psychic phenomena manifested as recurring nightmares filled with images of endless hunger and biological horror, while several astropaths suffered complete mental breakdown as the shadow in the warp began affecting their ability to maintain coherent thought processes. The gradual intensification of these psychic disturbances provided Imperial commanders with their first indication that they faced a Tyranid threat of unprecedented magnitude. Tau forces operating throughout the Damocles Gulf experienced their own detection of the approaching threat through sophisticated sensor networks that had been established to monitor Imperial fleet movements. The aliens' advanced scanning technology initially interpreted the biosignatures as some form of Imperial biological warfare deployment, leading to tactical preparations designed to counter what they assumed would be another phase of the human military campaign. The Tau Empire's limited previous contact with Tyranid organisms had not prepared their commanders for the reality of a full-scale hive fleet invasion, creating dangerous misconceptions about the nature of the approaching threat. The first confirmed sighting of Tyranid bioships occurred when an Imperial Navy patrol squadron encountered the outer edge of Hive Fleet Gorgon's advance elements near the contested system of Black Thunder Mesa. The patrol vessels, expecting to find either Tau forces or scattered asteroid debris, instead discovered massive organic constructs that defied conventional understanding of spacecraft design. These bioships demonstrated capabilities that exceeded both Imperial and Tau vessel performance, utilizing biological propulsion systems that enabled rapid course changes while maintaining speeds that conventional engines could not match. The engagement between Imperial patrol vessels and Tyranid bioships provided the first tactical intelligence about Hive Fleet Gorgon's military capabilities, revealing weapon systems that operated on principles entirely different from either Imperial or Tau technology. Tyranid bioships launched swarms of smaller organisms that functioned as guided projectiles, each one capable of independent targeting and equipped with acidic compounds that could dissolve Imperial armor plating within minutes of contact. The organic nature of these weapons made them immune to conventional electronic countermeasures, while their biological guidance systems demonstrated accuracy that matched the most sophisticated Imperial targeting computers. Imperial casualties during this initial encounter included the complete loss of 2 escort vessels, whose crews discovered that conventional void shields provided inadequate protection against Tyranid bioweapons. The acidic projectiles penetrated Imperial defensive systems through methods that Imperial technical specialists could not immediately understand, while the bioship's ability to regenerate damage from Imperial weapons fire suggested biological processes that operated faster than standard Imperial repair procedures. The surviving patrol vessel's astropath managed to transmit a warning message before the ship's destruction, providing Imperial commanders with their first accurate assessment of the Tyranid threat. Tau forces received confirmation of the new threat when their own reconnaissance elements encountered Tyranid organisms on the contested world of Cronus, where fire cast units had been conducting defensive operations against expected Imperial counterattacks. The appearance of Tyranid creatures on the planetary surface occurred without any detected orbital insertion, suggesting that the aliens possessed infiltration capabilities that exceeded both Imperial and Tau detection systems. These initial Tyranid organisms demonstrated biological adaptations that enabled survival in environments that would prove lethal to most other life forms, while their aggressive behavior patterns indicated predatory instincts focused on consuming any available organic matter. The first major Tyranid planetary assault targeted the agricultural world of Agrelin, whose extensive food production facilities represented an ideal source of biomass for the expanding Hive fleet. Tyranid bioships established orbital positions above the planet before releasing massive waves of mycetic spores that delivered assault organisms directly to the surface without requiring conventional landing craft or orbital insertion procedures. The spores' biological guidance systems enabled precise targeting of population centers and agricultural installations, while their armored shells provided protection against both Imperial and Tau anti-aircraft systems during the descent phase. Imperial Guard units defending Agrelin encountered Tyranid ground forces that operated according to biological imperatives entirely different from the tactical doctrines that characterized human or Tau military operations. Hormigaunt swarms advanced across open terrain without regard for casualties, their biological programming driving them toward enemy positions with single-minded determination that conventional suppressive fire could not deter. The creature's chitinous carapaces provided natural armor protection that deflected lasgun fire, while their scything talons could penetrate Imperial flak armor with devastating effectiveness. Termagant broods supporting the Hormigaunt assault carried living weapons that fired projectiles consisting of beetle-like organisms programmed to seek out and devour enemy personnel. These bioweapons demonstrated accuracy comparable to Imperial lasguns, while their ammunition possessed the ability to burrow through armor plating and consume the wearer from within. Imperial medics discovered that conventional treatment procedures proved ineffective against wounds inflicted by Tyranid bioweapons, as the organisms continued their destructive activities even after the initial attack had concluded. The coordination between different Tyranid organism types revealed a level of biological integration that exceeded anything in Imperial or Tau military doctrine, with each creature type fulfilling specific roles within a larger tactical framework that operated without apparent command structure. Warrior organisms directed swarm movements through pheromone signals and synaptic links that enabled real-time tactical adjustments, while larger creatures provided fire support and breakthrough capabilities that complemented the assault waves. This biological coordination created tactical flexibility that adapted continuously to changing battlefield conditions without requiring traditional command and control systems. Tau fire cast units operating on Agrelin discovered that their advanced pulse weapons proved more effective against Tyranid organisms than Imperial lasguns, but the sheer number of attacking creatures overwhelmed even the most sophisticated Tau defensive positions. Crisis battlesuit teams found themselves engaged in prolonged combat against Tyranid warriors whose biological weapons could penetrate battlesuit armor through sustained fire, while the aliens' ability to coordinate attacks from multiple directions negated many of the tactical advantages that Tau technology normally provided. The relentless nature of Tyranid assaults forced Tau commanders to abandon their methodical tactical approaches in favor of rapid withdrawal to more defensible positions. The consumption of Agrelin's agricultural resources proceeded with biological efficiency that demonstrated the true purpose of Tyranid planetary invasions, as massive Ripper swarms systematically devoured all available organic matter, while larger organisms processed the consumed biomass for transport to orbiting bioships. This biological harvesting operation converted the planet's entire ecosystem into raw materials for Hive Fleet Gorgon's continued expansion, while specialized organisms began atmospheric processing that would eventually render the world uninhabitable for non-Tyranid life forms. The speed of this consumption process exceeded both Imperial and Tau estimates of biological processing capabilities, suggesting that the Tyranids possessed evolutionary adaptations specifically designed for rapid biomass acquisition. Imperial and Tau forces found themselves facing a common threat that rendered their previous conflict secondary to the immediate necessity of survival against an enemy that sought to consume all available biological matter, regardless of species or allegiance. The Tyranids' indiscriminate appetite for organic material created tactical situations where Imperial and Tau units discovered mutual interest in coordinating defensive operations against Tyranid assault waves. These informal cooperation agreements developed spontaneously as battlefield commanders recognized that their traditional enemies posed less immediate threat than the advancing Tyranid swarms. The first documented instance of Imperial Tau tactical cooperation occurred during the defense of a water purification facility on Agrelin, where Cadian shock troops and Tau fire warriors found themselves occupying adjacent defensive positions against approaching Hormigaunt swarms. The Imperial commander, Captain Marcus Drent of the 12th Cadian, established communication with Shasui Ors, Koyan through improvised hand signals and basic Gothic vocabulary that the Tau officer had acquired during previous encounters with human forces. The resulting coordination enabled overlapping fields of fire that proved more effective against Tyranid assault waves than either force could have achieved independently. The tactical effectiveness of combined Imperial Tau operations against Tyranid forces demonstrated capabilities that neither military doctrine had previously considered, as the complementary nature of human and Tau weapons systems created defensive synergies that that maximized the effectiveness of available firepower. Imperial heavy weapons teams provided sustained suppressive fire that channeled Tyranid movements into predetermined kill zones, while Tau marksmanship eliminated specific high-value targets with precision that Imperial weapons could not match. The integration of Imperial numerical strength with Tau technological sophistication created defensive capabilities that exceeded the sum of their individual contributions. These cooperative operations remained strictly tactical arrangements focused on immediate survival rather than strategic alliances, as both Imperial and Tau commanders understood that their fundamental incompatibilities would reassert themselves once the Tyranid threat had been addressed. Imperial doctrine continued to classify Tau forces as xenos enemies, whose temporary usefulness did not alter their ultimate fate, while Tau philosophy viewed cooperation with Imperial forces as a necessary expedient that did not indicate acceptance of human military methods or political systems. The temporary nature of these arrangements created constant tension as both sides prepared for the eventual resumption of hostilities. The psychological impact of Tyranid consumption on both Imperial and Tau personnel proved as devastating as the immediate military casualties, as witnessing the systematic devouring of entire ecosystems created existential horror that conventional combat experience had not prepared either side to handle. Imperial Guard troopers accustomed to fighting human or alien opponents found themselves confronting creatures whose biological imperatives rendered conventional military psychology irrelevant, while Tau fire warriors struggled to apply their philosophical framework of the greater good to an enemy that sought only consumption and expansion. The alien nature of Tyranid motivations created psychological stress that affected combat effectiveness across both military organizations. Imperial medical personnel discovered that treating casualties from Tyranid attacks required entirely new procedures, as conventional wound treatment proved inadequate against biological agents that continued their destructive activities within the victim's body. Tyranid bioweapons introduced foreign organisms that consumed tissue and bone while reproducing within the host, creating progressive deterioration that conventional Imperial medicine could not halt effectively. The horrific nature of these biological attacks created additional psychological trauma among medical staff who were forced to witness the gradual consumption of their patients by alien organisms. Tau Earthcast engineers attempted to develop technological countermeasures against Tyranid biological weapons, but their sophisticated equipment proved inadequate against organisms that operated according to biological principles rather than mechanical or electronic systems. Standard Tau decontamination procedures could not eliminate Tyranid organisms that had adapted to survive in hostile environments, while their medical technology lacked the biological expertise necessary for treating wounds inflicted by living weapons. The limitations of Tau technological solutions against biological threats forced their commanders to rely more heavily on conventional military tactics that emphasized avoiding contact with Tyranid organisms rather than defeating them through superior equipment. The strategic implications of Hive Fleet Gorgon's arrival extended far beyond the immediate tactical challenges of fighting Tyranid organisms, as the aliens' consumption of contested worlds eliminated the territorial objectives that had motivated both Imperial and Tau expansion efforts in the Damocles Gulf region. The systematic devouring of planetary resources rendered traditional concepts of conquest and occupation meaningless, while the threat of biological consumption forced both sides to reconsider their strategic priorities in light of an enemy that could not be negotiated with or defeated through conventional military means. The presence of Tyranid forces transformed the nature of the conflict from a territorial dispute into a struggle for species survival. Imperial logistics networks faced unprecedented challenges as Tyranid bioships began intercepting supply convoys with weapons and tactics that conventional escort procedures could not counter effectively. The aliens' ability to track Imperial vessels through biological sensors that operated independently of conventional detection methods enabled precise interception of supply shipments, while their bioweapons proved capable of penetrating Imperial transport hulls and consuming cargo before it could reach its intended destination. These supply interdiction operations forced Imperial commanders to divert substantial military resources to convoy protection while reducing the efficiency of their logistical operations. Tau supply lines experienced similar disruption as Tyranid organisms demonstrated the ability to infiltrate Tau vessels and facilities through methods that their security systems could not detect or prevent. The biological nature of Tyranid infiltration techniques rendered conventional Tau countermeasures ineffective, while the aliens' consumption of Tau equipment and personnel created cascading failures throughout their logistical networks. The systematic nature of these disruptions suggested that Tyranid organisms possessed intelligence-gathering capabilities that enabled them to identify and target the most vulnerable elements of both Imperial and Tau military infrastructure. The consumption of key strategic worlds by Tyranid forces eliminated crucial staging areas and supply depots that both Imperial and Tau forces had relied upon for sustaining their military operations throughout the Damocles Gulf region. The loss of these facilities forced both sides to establish new logistical arrangements while operating under constant threat of Tyranid attack, creating resource constraints that affected their ability to maintain effective military operations. The cumulative impact of these losses began forcing both Imperial and Tau commanders to consider strategic withdrawal from contested territories, as Tyranid consumption rendered continued military operations increasingly unfeasible. The systematic consumption of contested worlds by Hive Fleet Gorgon forced Tau military commanders to accelerate technological development programs that had been progressing through normal Earth-cast research channels. The unprecedented nature of the Tyranid threat demanded immediate solutions that could counter biological weapons and swarm tactics that neither Imperial nor Tau doctrine had previously addressed. Earthcast engineering teams working in facilities across the Tau Empire received emergency authorization to deploy experimental technologies that had not completed standard testing protocols, while Firecast field commanders gained unprecedented authority to modify existing equipment configurations based on battlefield observations. The deployment of advanced XV-8 Crisis battlesuit variants marked the first major technological adaptation specifically designed to counter both Imperial heavy weapons and Tyranid biological attacks. These enhanced battlesuits incorporated improved armor plating that utilized layered ceramic composites capable of deflecting Imperial lascannon fire while providing protection against Tyranid acid attacks that had proven capable of dissolving standard battlesuit components. The integration of enhanced life support systems enabled extended operations in environments contaminated by Tyranid spores, while improved targeting computers provided accuracy advantages that proved crucial when engaging multiple enemy types simultaneously. Crisis battlesuit weapon loadouts underwent systematic modification to address the diverse threats encountered during the three-way conflict that had developed throughout the Damocles Gulf region. Plasma rifles received enhanced cooling systems that enabled sustained fire against Tyranid swarms without the overheating problems that had limited their effectiveness during prolonged engagements. Fusion blasters incorporated improved targeting matrices that enabled precision strikes against Imperial armor while maintaining the penetration capabilities necessary for eliminating Tyranid warrior organisms whose chitinous carapaces had proven resistant to conventional pulse weapons. The development of specialized missile systems for crisis battlesuits reflected Tau recognition that their existing weapons required supplementation with area effect capabilities designed specifically for engaging Tyranid swarm formations. These smart missile systems incorporated biological detection sensors that could differentiate between Tyranid organisms and Imperial or Tau personnel, enabling precise targeting in complex battlefield environments where multiple factions operated in close proximity. The missile's guidance systems utilized advanced artificial intelligence protocols that enabled real-time target prioritization based on threat assessment algorithms developed through analysis of Tyranid behavioral patterns. Broadside battlesuit modifications focused on enhancing their anti-armor capabilities, while providing options for engaging the massive Tyranid creatures that conventional weapons could not eliminate effectively. The deployment of experimental railgun variants with increased power output enabled penetration of Imperial land raider armor, while delivering sufficient kinetic energy to disable Tyranid carnifex organisms through catastrophic tissue damage. High-yield missile systems provided area suppression capabilities that proved effective against both Imperial Guard formations and Tyranid Ripper swarms, while advanced targeting systems enabled simultaneous engagement of multiple target types during complex battlefield situations. Stealth battlesuit technology received priority development attention as Tau commanders recognized the tactical advantages provided by units capable of operating undetected in environments where three different military forces maintained overlapping surveillance systems. Enhanced camouflage systems incorporated adaptive technologies that could mimic the electromagnetic signatures of both Imperial and Tyranid organisms, enabling stealth teams to conduct reconnaissance missions in contested areas without detection by enemy sensors. Improved burst cannon systems provided increased firepower while maintaining the compact design necessary for stealth operations, while advanced communications equipment enabled real-time intelligence transmission to supporting forces. The integration of drone technology into Tau tactical doctrine underwent revolutionary changes as battlefield experience demonstrated the effectiveness of automated systems against opponents who relied on conventional targeting methods. Gun drone improvements included enhanced artificial intelligence systems that enabled independent target acquisition and engagement without direct Tau supervision, while their pulse carbines received modifications that increased their effectiveness against both Imperial flak armor and Tyranid chitin plating. Shield drones incorporated energy field generators with improved power efficiency that enabled extended operation while providing protection against Imperial Laws weapons and Tyranid bioprojectiles. Marker drone capabilities expanded to include biological detection systems specifically designed for tracking Tyranid organisms through their unique biosignatures, while their target designation equipment received enhancements that enabled simultaneous coordination with multiple Tau units operating across extended battlefield areas. The drone's advanced sensor packages could differentiate between different Tyranid organism types while providing tactical data that enabled Tau commanders to deploy appropriate countermeasures against specific biological threats. These reconnaissance capabilities proved particularly valuable during night operations when visual identification of enemy forces became difficult or impossible. Tactical drone deployment strategies evolved to emphasize swarm coordination techniques that maximize their effectiveness against numerically superior opponents while minimizing losses to enemy fire. Drone formations utilized distributed intelligence networks that enabled collective decision-making processes, allowing individual drones to coordinate their actions with other automated units without requiring constant supervision from Tau controllers. This autonomous operation capability proved particularly valuable during engagements with Tyranid forces whose synaptic creatures attempted to disrupt Tau command and control systems through biological interference. The development of new fire warrior equipment reflected lessons learned from prolonged combat against opponents whose capabilities exceeded initial Tau intelligence assessments. Pulse rifle modifications included improved power cells that enabled sustained fire during extended engagements, while enhanced targeting systems provided accuracy improvements that proved crucial when engaging Imperial Guard heavy weapons teams and Tyranid warrior organisms at maximum range. Photon grenades received upgrades that increased their effectiveness against both Imperial night vision equipment and Tyranid sensory organs, while EMP grenades proved capable of disrupting Imperial vehicle systems without affecting Tau equipment. Advanced pulse carbine variants incorporated selective ammunition feeds that enabled fire warriors to utilize different projectile types depending on target requirements, with armor-piercing rounds for engaging Imperial vehicles and explosive rounds designed specifically for maximum damage against Tyranid organisms. The weapon's compact design maintained the mobility advantages that characterized Tau infantry tactics while providing firepower options that enabled effective engagement of diverse enemy types. Improved cooling systems prevented overheating during sustained combat operations, while enhanced reliability mechanisms reduced maintenance requirements during extended field deployments. Fire warrior armor modifications focused on providing protection against the diverse threats encountered during three-way combat operations, incorporating layers of different materials designed to counter specific weapon types. Ceramic plating provided protection against Imperial projectile weapons while maintaining the flexibility necessary for Tau mobility tactics, while bio-resistant coatings prevented Tyranid acid attacks from compromising armor integrity. Enhanced life support systems enabled operation in environments contaminated by Tyranid spores or Imperial chemical weapons, while improved communications equipment maintained squad coordination despite enemy jamming attempts. The tactical doctrine modifications implemented by fire caste commanders represented fundamental changes in Tau military philosophy that incorporated lessons learned from combat against technologically sophisticated Imperial forces and biologically adapted Tyranid organisms. Traditional Tau emphasis on long-range precision fire required supplementation with close combat capabilities designed for situations where enemy forces could close to short range despite Tau firepower advantages. These doctrinal changes emphasized tactical flexibility and rapid adaptation to changing battlefield conditions rather than rigid adherence to predetermined tactical plans. Koyan tactical philosophy received significant refinement as Tau commanders discovered that patient observation techniques could provide crucial intelligence about both Imperial operational patterns and Tyranid behavioral characteristics. The integration of advanced sensor systems with traditional observation methods enabled Tau forces to gather detailed information about enemy capabilities while remaining undetected in concealed positions. This intelligence-gathering capability proved particularly valuable when planning operations against Imperial forces, whose predictable tactical responses could be exploited through careful timing and precise target selection. Montka doctrine adaptations emphasized rapid deployment capabilities that enabled Tau forces to achieve tactical surprise against opponents who had adapted to previous Tau operational methods. The integration of enhanced mobility systems with improved firepower enabled Tau units to engage enemy forces from unexpected angles while maintaining the speed necessary for rapid withdrawal after mission completion. These tactical modifications proved particularly effective against Imperial Guard formations, whose defensive arrangements assumed conventional approach routes and engagement ranges. Combined arms coordination between different Tau unit types reached unprecedented levels of sophistication as battlefield experience demonstrated the effectiveness of integrated operations against diverse enemy threats. Fire warrior teams received training in coordinating their movements with crisis battlesuit formations, while Pathfinder units developed specialized techniques for providing target designation support to broadside teams engaging heavily armored targets. This tactical integration enabled Tau forces to maximize their firepower while maintaining the flexibility necessary for rapid redeployment when battlefield conditions changed. The development of specialized anti-Imperial tactics reflected detailed analysis of human military capabilities and organizational weaknesses that Tau intelligence services had identified through extensive battlefield observation. Tau commanders discovered that Imperial Guard units relied heavily on predictable communication procedures and standardized tactical responses that could be exploited through carefully planned deception operations. The deployment of Pathfinder teams equipped with advanced electronic warfare systems enabled disruption of Imperial command networks while providing false targeting information that caused Imperial artillery to engage incorrect coordinates. Anti-Tyranid tactical developments focused on countering the biological advantages that enabled Tyranid organisms to operate effectively in environments that would prove lethal to conventional military forces. Tau Earth-cast engineers developed specialized ammunition types that incorporated biological agents designed to disrupt Tyranid nervous systems, while advanced sensor systems enabled early detection of Tyranid infiltration attempts before organisms could establish breeding populations. These countermeasures required constant adaptation, as Tyranid organisms demonstrated the ability to develop resistance to specific Tau weapons through evolutionary processes that operated faster than conventional military adaptation cycles. The implementation of enhanced communication systems throughout Tau military formations enabled coordination capabilities that exceeded both Imperial and Tyranid command and control systems. Advanced encryption protocols prevented enemy interception of Tau tactical communications, while distributed network architectures ensured continued operation despite enemy attempts to disrupt command structures through targeted attacks. These communication improvements enabled real-time coordination between Tau units operating across multiple planetary theaters, while maintaining operational security against sophisticated enemy intelligence gathering efforts. Ethereal leadership during the crisis demonstrated the effectiveness of Tau's social organization in maintaining military cohesion during extremely challenging operational conditions. Onolkayan's strategic oversight ensured that tactical innovations developed by individual Sept forces were systematically shared throughout the Tau military organization, while his coordination of multi-Sept operations enabled resource sharing that maximized the effectiveness of limited Tau assets. The Ethereal's ability to maintain unity between different Sept forces prevented the factional disputes that had historically weakened Tau military effectiveness during prolonged campaigns. The integration of water-cast diplomatic intelligence with fire-cast tactical planning provided Tau commanders with unprecedented insights into Imperial command structures and decision-making processes. Water-cast analysis of captured Imperial communications revealed organizational weaknesses and personal conflicts among Imperial officers that could be exploited through targeted psychological warfare operations. This intelligence integration enabled Tau forces to predict Imperial responses to specific tactical situations, while identifying opportunities for maximizing the effectiveness of limited Tau resources against numerically superior opponents. Aircast technological developments focused on enhancing the mobility and firepower of Tau atmospheric craft, while providing capabilities for operations in the contested airspace above battlefield areas, where Imperial and Tyranid forces maintained competing air defense systems. Barracuda fighter modifications included improved stealth systems that enabled penetration of Imperial air defense networks, while maintaining the speed and maneuverability necessary for engaging Imperial aircraft in aerial combat. Enhanced weapon systems provided options for engaging both Imperial flyers and Tyranid flying organisms, with specialized ammunition types designed for maximum effectiveness against different target categories. The systematic analysis of enemy equipment captured during combat operations provided Tau Earth-cast engineers with detailed information about Imperial and Tyranid capabilities that enabled development of specific countermeasures and tactical adaptations. Imperial weapons and vehicles underwent complete technical analysis that revealed design principles and operational limitations that could be exploited during subsequent engagements. Tyranid organisms presented greater analytical challenges due to their biological nature, but Earth-caste specialists developed techniques for understanding Tyranid biological processes that enabled prediction of evolutionary adaptations and development of appropriate countermeasures. These technological and tactical innovations represented the most significant advancement in Tau military capabilities since the beginning of their expansion beyond their home sept worlds, demonstrating their ability to adapt rapidly to changing strategic conditions while maintaining the philosophical coherence that characterized their approach to warfare. The integration of advanced technology with sophisticated tactical doctrine created military capabilities that enabled Tau forces to operate effectively against multiple enemy types simultaneously while preserving their essential character as a technologically advanced civilization committed to the principles of the greater good. The systematic consumption of contested worlds by Hive Fleet Gorgon had fundamentally altered the strategic calculus governing the Damocles Gulf Crusade, transforming what had begun as a conventional territorial conquest into a desperate struggle for survival against an enemy that sought to devour all biological matter, regardless of species or allegiance. Imperial commanders found themselves managing a three-way conflict that stretched their resources beyond sustainable limits while facing opponents whose capabilities exceeded all previous intelligence assessments. The Tyranid intervention had eliminated many of the strategic objectives that had justified the massive Imperial commitment to the region, while the continued effectiveness of Tau resistance operations demonstrated that achieving decisive victory would require resources that the Imperium could not indefinitely maintain. The logistical strain of supporting major military operations across multiple contested systems began creating serious supply shortages that affected Imperial combat effectiveness throughout the Crusade theater. Transport convoys faced constant interdiction from both Tau hunter cadres and Tyranid bioships, forcing Imperial Navy escort squadrons to divert substantial resources from offensive operations to convoy protection duties. The loss rates among supply vessels exceeded sustainable levels, while the consumption of entire worlds by Tyranid forces eliminated forward supply bases that had been essential for maintaining operations in the outer regions of the Damocles Gulf. Imperial logistics officers calculated that current supply consumption rates would exhaust available reserves within 6 standard months, creating an operational crisis that threatened the entire Crusade effort. Ammunition expenditure during prolonged engagements against both Tau forces and Tyranid swarms far exceeded the levels that Imperial planners had anticipated when authorizing the Crusade deployment. Imperial Guard regiments reported ammunition consumption rates that were 3 times higher than normal combat operations due to the precision targeting required against Tau battlesuits and the sustained fire necessary to suppress Tyranid assault waves. Specialized ammunition types designed for anti-armor operations against Tau vehicles proved particularly scarce, while the exotic materials required for manufacturing these rounds could not be obtained from local sources within the Crusade theater. The Adeptus Munitorum's supply calculations indicated that maintaining current operational tempo would require supply shipments that exceeded the transport capacity available to the Crusade command. Casualty rates among Imperial Guard formations reached levels that threatened unit cohesion across multiple regiments, with some companies suffering losses exceeding 50% of their authorized strength during individual engagements. The 8th Cadian Shock Troops reported the loss of their entire 3rd Company during a failed assault against Tau positions on Daleth Prime, while the 12th Cadian had been reduced to approximately 60% strength following repeated engagements with Tyranid organisms on Agrelin. Medical facilities throughout the Crusade theater operated beyond capacity while facing shortages of specialized equipment necessary for treating casualties inflicted by Tau pulse weapons and Tyranid bio-attacks. The psychological impact of witnessing Tyranid consumption of wounded personnel created additional stress casualties that further reduced Imperial combat effectiveness. Space Marine chapters participating in the Crusade experienced their own significant losses that could not be easily replaced through normal recruitment procedures. The Ultramarines' Second Company had lost 12 battle brothers during operations against Shadowsun's forces, including a veteran sergeant whose tactical expertise could not be quickly replaced. The White Scar's Third Company reported similar casualties from their Lightning War operations, while their bike squadrons required extensive maintenance and replacement parts that were not readily available within the Crusade's supply network. The specialized nature of Astartes' equipment meant that battle damage often required complete replacement rather than field repair, creating logistical demands that strained the Crusade's limited technical resources. Imperial Navy losses included several escort vessels destroyed during convoy protection duties and 2 cruisers severely damaged during orbital bombardment operations against Tau defensive installations. The battlecruiser Dominus Astra required extensive repairs following damage from Tau railgun batteries, while its crew had suffered casualties that affected operational efficiency across multiple ship departments. Replacement personnel for specialized naval positions could not be obtained locally, requiring transfers from other Imperial fleet commands that were reluctant to weaken their own operational capabilities. The cumulative effect of these naval losses reduced the Crusade's ability to maintain orbital superiority while protecting vulnerable transport operations. Intelligence assessments conducted by Imperial commanders revealed the extent of Tau technological advantages that had not been apparent during the initial phases of the Crusade. Captured Tau equipment demonstrated manufacturing precision and materials science that exceeded Imperial capabilities in several crucial areas, while their weapon systems incorporated targeting computers and power systems that Imperial technical specialists could not duplicate. The aliens' ability to coordinate complex military operations through advanced communications networks enabled tactical flexibility that Imperial forces could not match despite their numerical advantages. These technological disparities suggested that achieving decisive victory against Tau forces would require fundamental changes to Imperial tactical doctrine and equipment that could not be implemented during ongoing combat operations. The strategic situation reports transmitted to Terra through astropathic communications painted an increasingly pessimistic picture of Crusade prospects that contradicted the optimistic assessments that had justified the original deployment authorization. Imperial commanders acknowledged that the three-way nature of the conflict had created tactical complications that exceeded their ability to resolve through conventional military means, while the Tyranid consumption of contested worlds had eliminated many of the territorial objectives that had motivated the Crusade. The resource requirements for achieving decisive results against both Tau and Tyranid forces simultaneously exceeded the capabilities that Imperial logistics could sustain over extended periods. Political pressure from other Imperial sectors facing their own military crises began influencing strategic decisions regarding continued commitment to the Damocles Gulf operation. The Segmentum Solar Command structure received urgent requests for military assistance from multiple threatened regions, including Orc invasions in the Armageddon sector and Chaos incursions along the Cadian Gate. These competing demands for Imperial military resources created political tensions between different sector commands, while the High Lords of Terra faced difficult decisions regarding resource allocation between multiple simultaneous threats. The strategic value of the Damocles Gulf region, while significant, could not justify indefinite commitment of resources that were desperately needed elsewhere throughout the Imperium. The emergence of additional Tyranid splinter fleets in adjacent sectors created new threats that required immediate Imperial response, further straining the military resources available for continued operations in the Damocles Gulf. Hive Fleet Kraken's approach toward the Ultramar sector demanded immediate attention from available Space Marine chapters, while reports of Tyranid infiltration organisms on several core Imperial worlds created security concerns that required specialized counter-bioform units. The systematic nature of these Tyranid appearances suggested coordinated expansion efforts that posed existential threats to Imperial territory far beyond the contested regions of the Eastern Fringe. Imperial Guard regiments deployed to the Damocles Gulf faced mounting pressure from their home worlds to return for defensive duties against emerging local threats. The Cadian High Command requested the immediate recall of several shock troop regiments for operations against chaos forces threatening the Cadian Gate, while Tallarn military authorities needed their Desert Raider formations for campaigns against Orc invasions in their home sector. These competing demands for experienced military units created political complications that affected Imperial unity of command, while reducing the forces available for continued Crusade operations. Economic considerations began influencing Imperial strategic planning as the massive resource expenditure required for the Crusade created fiscal pressures that affected other Imperial military operations. The Adeptus Munitorum's budget calculations indicated that continuing the Damocles Gulf operation at current levels would require resource allocations that exceeded available Imperial production capacity, while the specialized equipment losses could not be replaced without diverting manufacturing resources from other critical military requirements. The Adeptus Mechanicus expressed concerns about the sustainability of providing advanced technical support for operations that showed diminishing prospects for achieving decisive strategic results. Tau diplomatic overtures during this period reflected their recognition that continued three-way warfare served no constructive purpose for any of the involved parties. Watercast ambassadors attempted to establish communication channels with Imperial authorities through captured Imperial personnel who had demonstrated willingness to engage in dialogue. These diplomatic initiatives emphasized the mutual threat posed by Tyranid forces, while suggesting that temporary cessation of hostilities would benefit both Imperial and Tau interests in addressing the biological menace. The aliens' diplomatic proposals included territorial concessions and technology sharing agreements that demonstrated their understanding of Imperial strategic concerns. Imperial responses to Tau diplomatic initiatives revealed the complex political considerations that influenced military decision-making at the highest levels of Imperial authority. While Imperial doctrine prohibited formal negotiations with xenos species, the practical necessity of addressing the Tyranid threat created circumstances that required flexibility in applying established policies. Senior Imperial commanders recognized that continued warfare against Tau forces, while simultaneously fighting Tyranid organisms, created tactical disadvantages that could result in the complete loss of Imperial presence in the Eastern Fringe region. The gradual recognition among Imperial High Command that the Crusade had reached an unsustainable stalemate occurred through a series of strategic assessments that acknowledged the limitations of conventional military solutions to the complex threats present in the Damocles Gulf region. Tau technological advantages had proven more significant than initial intelligence estimates suggested, while their adaptive capabilities enabled continuous improvement in their military effectiveness despite Imperial pressure. The Tyranid intervention had fundamentally altered the strategic environment by eliminating territorial objectives while creating new threats that required different tactical approaches than those developed for fighting human or conventional alien opponents. Military advisors within the Crusade command structure began developing contingency plans for strategic withdrawal that would preserve Imperial military assets while maintaining defensive positions capable of containing Tau expansion toward core Imperial territories. These withdrawal scenarios emphasized the establishment of fortified monitoring stations along key transit routes, while concentrating remaining Imperial forces at strategic locations that could serve as bases for future operations. The complexity of coordinating simultaneous withdrawal operations across multiple contested systems required careful planning to prevent Tau forces from exploiting Imperial movements while maintaining security against Tyranid infiltration. Resource depletion calculations conducted by Imperial logistics specialists revealed that maintaining current operational levels would exhaust critical supplies within months rather than the years that would be necessary for achieving decisive military victory. Specialized ammunition stocks had fallen below minimum operational requirements, while replacement parts for Imperial vehicles and equipment could not be obtained quickly enough to maintain combat readiness across all deployed units. The cumulative effect of these supply shortages created cascading failures in Imperial military effectiveness that reduced their ability to conduct offensive operations while maintaining adequate defensive capabilities. The mounting casualties among experienced Imperial personnel created capability gaps that could not be filled through normal replacement procedures during ongoing combat operations. Veteran sergeants and technical specialists, whose expertise had been crucial for maintaining unit effectiveness, could not be replaced by inexperienced personnel who lacked the specialized knowledge necessary for operating in the complex tactical environment of the Damocles Gulf. The loss of institutional knowledge represented by these casualties reduced Imperial tactical flexibility while creating training requirements that exceeded available time and resources. Political pressure from Terra intensified as other Imperial sectors reported increasing threats that required immediate military intervention. The Adeptus Terra's strategic planning councils identified multiple crisis situations that demanded resources currently committed to the Damocles Gulf operation, while the political costs of continued casualties without corresponding strategic gains created pressure for policy changes. The High Lords of Terra faced difficult decisions regarding resource allocation between competing strategic priorities, with the Damocles Gulf operation representing only one of many simultaneous military commitments that exceeded available Imperial capabilities. The negotiated ceasefire that eventually emerged from these strategic pressures represented a pragmatic recognition of military realities rather than a formal diplomatic agreement between Imperial and Tau authorities. Imperial commanders established informal communication protocols with Tau forces that enabled coordination of anti-Tyranid operations, while maintaining the fiction that no official negotiations had occurred with xenos representatives. These arrangements allowed both sides to concentrate their military resources against the Tyranid threat, while avoiding the political complications that would result from formal diplomatic recognition. Withdrawal planning proceeded according to carefully developed schedules that prioritized the preservation of Imperial military assets while maintaining defensive capabilities along strategic transit routes. Imperial Guard regiments began systematic redeployment to rear area positions that could serve as staging points for future operations, while Space Marine chapters received new assignments that utilized their specialized capabilities in other threatened sectors. The Imperial Navy coordinated transport operations that moved personnel and equipment to secure locations, while maintaining patrol schedules that prevented Tau forces from exploiting Imperial movements. The establishment of monitoring stations throughout the contested region provided Imperial forces with intelligence gathering capabilities that enabled continued surveillance of Tau activities while maintaining early warning systems against potential future expansion efforts. These installations incorporated advanced sensor equipment and communication systems that could detect Tau fleet movements while providing secure bases for reconnaissance operations. The strategic positioning of these monitoring posts created a defensive network that could support future Imperial operations while serving immediate intelligence requirements. Garrison troops assigned to maintain Imperial presence in strategic locations received specialized training and equipment designed for long-term defensive operations against both Tau and Tyranid threats. These forces operated under modified tactical doctrines that emphasized surveillance and intelligence gathering rather than offensive operations, while their defensive positions incorporated lessons learned from prolonged combat against technologically sophisticated opponents. The selection of garrison personnel prioritized experience and reliability over numerical strength, creating small but highly capable units that could maintain Imperial interests without requiring extensive logistical support. The formal conclusion of the Damocles Gulf Crusade marked the end of the most significant Imperial military commitment to the Eastern Fringe since the Great Crusade, leaving behind a complex legacy that would influence Imperial-Tau relations for millennia to come. The withdrawal of major Imperial forces from the contested region occurred gradually over 18 standard months, with careful coordination between different Imperial agencies to ensure that strategic assets were preserved while maintaining defensive capabilities along crucial border zones. The process required unprecedented logistical planning as transport fleets moved entire regiments and their equipment across vast interstellar distances while maintaining operational security against potential Tau interdiction attempts. The establishment of the Damocles Gulf as a permanent contested frontier zone represented a fundamental shift in Imperial strategic doctrine regarding xenos containment. Rather than pursuing complete territorial conquest or alien extermination, Imperial planners accepted the reality of Tau technological capabilities and established defensive positions designed to monitor alien activities while preventing further expansion toward core Imperial territories. This approach required the construction of fortified monitoring stations throughout the region, each equipped with advanced sensor arrays and communication systems capable of detecting Tau fleet movements at extended ranges while providing early warning of potential expansion efforts. Imperial garrison forces assigned to these frontier positions operated under modified tactical doctrines that emphasized intelligence gathering and defensive operations rather than aggressive expansion. The 47th Cadian Defense Regiment received permanent assignment to the fortress world of Agrellan Prime, where their responsibilities included maintaining surveillance of Tau shipping routes, while coordinating with Imperial Navy patrol squadrons conducting reconnaissance missions throughout the contested zone. These garrison troops received specialized equipment designed for long-term deployment in hostile environments, including enhanced Voxcasters for long-range communication and modified lasguns with improved power cells for extended operations without resupply. The lessons learned by Imperial forces during the Crusade fundamentally altered their understanding of xenos' military capabilities and led to significant revisions in tactical doctrine throughout the Eastern Fringe. Imperial Guard training manuals incorporated new sections addressing the challenges of fighting technologically sophisticated alien opponents, emphasizing the importance of combined arms coordination and tactical flexibility when facing enemies equipped with advanced targeting systems and mobile weapons platforms. The Adeptus Munitorum's analysis of Crusade operations identified specific weaknesses in Imperial equipment and procedures that required immediate attention, leading to development programs for improved anti-armor weapons and enhanced communications equipment. Space Marine chapters that participated in the Crusade carried their combat experience to other theaters of operation throughout the Imperium, spreading tactical innovations and strategic insights gained from fighting Tau forces. The Ultramarines incorporated lessons learned from urban warfare on Daleth Prime into their training programs, developing new techniques for operating in environments where enemy forces possessed technological advantages in precision targeting and coordinated fire support. Captain Cato Sicarius's tactical assessments became required reading for Astartes officers throughout Ultramar, while his recommendations for countering alien stealth technology influenced equipment development across multiple Space Marine chapters. The White Scar's Lightning War experiences provided valuable insights into the limitations of mobility-based tactics against opponents equipped with advanced sensor systems and coordinated air defense networks. Captain Corsaro Khan's operational reports emphasized the importance of maintaining tactical unpredictability while developing countermeasures for enemy adaptation to Imperial operational patterns. The chapter's modified bike squadrons received enhanced electronic warfare equipment designed to counter alien targeting systems, while their land speeder formations incorporated improved stealth capabilities that enabled continued reconnaissance operations despite enhanced enemy detection systems. Imperial Navy tactical doctrine underwent significant revision based on combat experience against Tau vessels, equipped with railgun technology and advanced maneuvering systems. Fleet engagement protocols incorporated new formations designed to maximize Imperial firepower advantages while minimizing exposure to precise alien weapons that could eliminate individual vessels through concentrated fire. The Imperial Navy's technical specialists developed enhanced armor configurations and improved void shield systems specifically designed to counter Tau weapons technology, while their gunnery training programs emphasized the importance of coordinated fire patterns that could overwhelm alien defensive systems. Tau forces emerged from the conflict with their own comprehensive understanding of Imperial military capabilities and organizational structures that would influence their strategic planning for future expansion efforts. Earthcast analysis of captured Imperial equipment revealed manufacturing techniques and design principles that enabled them to develop specific countermeasures for Imperial weapon systems, while their study of Imperial tactical communications provided insights into human command structures and decision-making processes. The systematic nature of Tau intelligence gathering during the Crusade created detailed databases of Imperial capabilities that would prove invaluable during subsequent conflicts. The technological innovations developed by Tau forces during the Crusade became standard equipment throughout their military organization, with improved battlesuit designs and enhanced weapons systems being deployed to sept worlds across the expanding Tau Empire. The XV-22 stealth suit technology, pioneered by Commander Shadowsun, underwent further refinement and mass production, creating specialized units capable of conducting reconnaissance and assassination missions against Imperial targets throughout the Eastern Fringe. Crisis battlesuit modifications developed during the conflict provided enhanced anti-armor capabilities that proved effective against Imperial vehicles, while improved drone systems enabled more sophisticated coordination between different Tau unit types. Firecast tactical doctrine incorporated lessons learned from three-way combat operations, emphasizing the importance of maintaining tactical flexibility when facing multiple enemy types with different capabilities and operational patterns. Tau military academies developed new training programs that prepared fire warriors for combat against both Imperial forces and biological threats like Tyranid organisms, while their officer education emphasized adaptive leadership techniques that enabled rapid response to changing battlefield conditions. The integration of these lessons into standard Tau military training created more versatile forces capable of operating effectively against diverse opponents. The diplomatic precedents established during the informal ceasefire negotiations created frameworks that would influence subsequent Imperial Tau interactions throughout the Eastern Fringe. Watercast diplomatic protocols developed during the crisis provided templates for future communication attempts with Imperial authorities, while their analysis of Imperial political structures identified key decision-makers and institutional relationships that could be leveraged during future negotiations. The Tau empires demonstrated willingness to engage in tactical cooperation against common threats, established patterns of behavior that would resurface during later crises involving mutual enemies. Imperial intelligence services conducted extensive analysis of Tau diplomatic capabilities and negotiation techniques, developing countermeasures designed to prevent alien manipulation of Imperial decision-making processes. The Ordo Xenos compiled detailed assessments of Tau political organization and leadership structures, identifying key individuals and institutional relationships that could be exploited during future conflicts. These intelligence products became essential references for Imperial commanders operating in regions where contact with Tau forces remained possible, providing crucial insights into alien motivations and tactical preferences. The economic impact of the Crusade created lasting changes in Imperial resource allocation and strategic planning throughout the Eastern Fringe. The massive expenditure of materials and personnel during the operation forced Imperial administrators to develop more efficient logistics systems and improved resource management procedures. The Adeptus Munitorum's analysis of Crusade costs led to revised budgeting procedures that incorporated more accurate assessments of resource requirements for extended operations against technologically sophisticated opponents, while their supply chain improvements reduced waste and enhanced distribution efficiency. Forge World contributions to the Crusade effort accelerated technological development programs that had been progressing slowly through normal research channels. The combat experience gained from fighting Tau forces provided valuable data about alien technology and manufacturing capabilities, leading to Imperial innovations in materials science and weapons design. Forge World Lucius developed enhanced communications equipment specifically designed to counter Tau electronic warfare capabilities, while Forge World Ryza created improved plasma weapons with better cooling systems and enhanced reliability for extended combat operations. The Tyranid intervention during the Crusade established precedents for Imperial response to biological threats that would influence military doctrine throughout the galaxy. The experience of fighting Tyranid organisms alongside Tau forces, even temporarily, provided Imperial commanders with insights into the aliens' military capabilities, while demonstrating the effectiveness of coordinated operations against common enemies. These lessons proved valuable during subsequent Tyranid incursions, where Imperial forces encountered situations requiring cooperation with other species against biological threats that posed existential dangers to all organic life. Medical advances developed during the Crusade addressed the unique challenges of treating casualties inflicted by both Tau pulse weapons and Tyranid bioattacks. Imperial medical personnel developed new treatment protocols for wounds caused by alien weapon systems, while their research into Tyranid biological agents led to improved decontamination procedures and protective equipment. These medical innovations were distributed throughout Imperial military forces operating in regions where contact with similar threats remained possible, improving survival rates and reducing the long-term effects of exposure to alien weapons. The establishment of permanent Imperial monitoring stations throughout the Damocles Gulf created an intelligence network that provided early warning of Tau expansion activities while maintaining surveillance of shipping routes and military movements. These installations operated sophisticated sensor arrays capable of detecting alien vessels at extreme ranges, while their communication systems enabled rapid transmission of intelligence to Imperial fleet commands and sector headquarters. The strategic positioning of these monitoring posts created overlapping coverage zones that prevented Tau forces from conducting covert expansion operations without Imperial detection. Border patrol operations conducted by Imperial Navy squadrons established regular reconnaissance patterns that maintained Imperial presence throughout the contested region while gathering intelligence about Tau activities and technological developments. These patrols utilized modified escort vessels equipped with enhanced sensor systems and extended-range communication equipment, enabling them to operate independently for extended periods while maintaining contact with Imperial command authorities. The systematic nature of these patrol operations created predictable Imperial presence that deterred Tau expansion attempts while providing opportunities for gathering tactical intelligence. Trade relationships between Imperial worlds and neutral systems in the region underwent significant changes as the strategic situation stabilized following the Crusade's conclusion. Imperial merchants operating in border regions required enhanced security measures and modified trade agreements that accounted for the presence of Tau forces and the potential for renewed hostilities. The Administratum developed new protocols for commercial operations in contested zones, while Imperial Navy escort assignments prioritized protection of trade convoys operating near Tau-controlled territory. The cultural impact of the Crusade extended throughout Imperial society in the Eastern Fringe, creating lasting changes in attitudes towards xenos threats and military service. Imperial Guard recruitment in the region emphasized the importance of tactical flexibility and technological competence, while training programs incorporated lessons learned from combat against sophisticated alien opponents. The heroic narratives that emerged from Crusade operations became part of local Imperial culture, inspiring future generations of Imperial citizens while reinforcing commitment to Imperial values and military service. Religious interpretations of the Crusades' outcome varied throughout Imperial territory, with some Imperial cult theologians viewing the stalemate as divine intervention that prevented unnecessary Imperial losses, while others interpreted the results as a test of Imperial faith that required renewed commitment to expansion and conquest. The ecclesiarchy's official position emphasized the importance of vigilance against xenos corruption, while acknowledging the practical necessity of defensive measures against technologically advanced alien threats. These theological debates influenced Imperial policy regarding future military operations against xenos species throughout the Eastern Fringe. The long-term strategic implications of the Damocles Gulf Crusade established patterns of Imperial-Tau interaction that would persist for millennia, creating a contested frontier zone where both species maintained military presence while avoiding large-scale warfare that neither side could sustain indefinitely. The technological and tactical innovations developed during the conflict influenced military doctrine throughout both civilizations, while the diplomatic precedents established during the crisis provided frameworks for managing future confrontations. The Crusades' legacy demonstrated both the potential for devastating warfare between advanced civilizations and the practical limitations that prevented complete conquest when opponents possessed comparable technological capabilities and strategic resources. The Damocles Gulf region remained a focal point of tension between the Imperium and the expanding Tau Empire, with periodic skirmishes and diplomatic incidents maintaining the potential for renewed large-scale conflict. The monitoring stations and garrison forces established during the Crusades' aftermath provided Imperial authorities with early warning capabilities, while demonstrating continued Imperial commitment to containing Tau expansion. The lessons learned from this first major confrontation between human and Tau military forces would prove invaluable during subsequent conflicts as both civilizations continued their expansion across the galaxy, forever changed by their encounter in the contested stars of the Damocles Gulf.